It's literally every morning. That is my first move. Where's my cell phone? And click on my reveal app. I mean,
dude, mine's in the middle of the night. Like 4 a.m. I'll wake up, I roll over, I start checking it. My wife's
the one eye buried in the pillow.
My wife's like, what are you doing? I was like, nothing. She's like, turn it off. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Heck yeah, man. Dude, we put a lot of food in the ground every year, seemingly more and more, and we have a ton of fun with it during the off season. There's some struggles that come with it too, though, right? Obviously, the back of my truck is evidence, right now. It's a couple weeks after I jackknifed, a 4,800-pound material spreader, as I was coming down, and it was too much weight for my truck there. But, all those struggles aside, dude, Deer Grow really has been a staple for our food plotting process for several years now. Yes, we like to put lime and fertilizer on the plots, if we can, but there are some that it's just we're not able to get to them, or it's not feasible for us to get out of state with that stuff. And so Deer Grow is kind of the quick and easy, but still super effective option for us to be able to get the most out of those food plots that we can every year.
Yeah, and I mean, we're guilty of overanalyzing things just like everyone else, but that's the best part about Deer Grow is that it's going to create healthier soils, which in turn makes better food plots. And the fact is we can simply spray plot start or plot till when we put the seed in the ground, and then when that plant starts to grow, we hit it with boost. And we know that we walk away, when we come back, it's going to be a great looking food plot. For anybody that's looking to try Deer Grow, if you use the code HUNTR15, that's HUNTR15 at checkout for deergrow.com, you're going to save 15% on any of your Deer Grow products. It's a great way to get started on this and just see what the results are for yourself.
Better food plots, bigger deer.
And we're back.
Hey.
HUNTR Podcast 151, Bacardi.
When is this going to air? What'd you say, Bacardi?
Bacardi 151.
Oh, yeah. Whoa. I've got some, memories.
I don't know if I've actually ever had Bacardi.
That one's put me in a hurting.
Did you go to college, Nick?
Community college.
Oh, well, that's where you would have had it for sure.
Yeah.
Community college.
I didn't really have
in the parking lot
experience. Dude, I lived
the dorms
3 minutes away from campus, so I was never there. I went for class and then went home.
What community college?
You could have rented out your house.
I know. Penn Highlands in Johnstown.
Penn Highlands?
Pennsylvania Highlands Community College. Yeah, it's like...
What'd you go for?
Media production.
Yeah, nice.
Coincidentally, what do you
Wow, look at you.
That?
Wow.
I want that.
Putting it to use.
Yeah. Putting in the man hours.
Money well spent. Putting in the man hours.
Yep.
Good stuff.
You can say your part or no?
Yeah.
You could if you want today.
Yeah, I was just waiting for the right moment. So, hey, everybody that's listening, we appreciate you guys for listening and tuning in. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, give us a follow, subscribe to our channel, comment, leave us some feedback and stuff. We appreciate you guys, and thanks for being here.
We are in the heat of deer season as this drops. Nick's saying October 17th, thereabouts, unless we double it up at some point.
Yeah, I bet we catch a cold front by then.
I would love to catch a cold front by then.
I mean, dude, it's all, it's
ebb and flow.
It's ebb and flow, man. You just got to roll with it. We're getting rain at the farm right now, Thursday. Tomorrow is that pseudo, but it's typically the next day. So Saturday should be perfect. It's like high of 76. Bluebird sky though, that pressure's gonna start rising again. Sunday's, probably still good. Thinking maybe even a morning hunt, depending. Yeah. And then we'll probably pull out. Next week looks, 80s.
And next week's one of those weeks that you hate to let the opening week slip by, but I mean it looks hot and stale.
Yeah.
Like throughout.
Should be warm. Has that Kentucky buck been showing for you still?
Yep.
He was there this morning again?
Not in daylight. He's been there overnight. But back-to-back daylight mornings, like 8:30 and 9:10. I was like, what the? After I was like stomping through there looking for that coyote too. I couldn't believe it.
And you're not going back till when?
Next weekend.
It's a long time. He's going to daylight again before that,
I might go back next week. I got to go to Ohio next week. I haven't done anything there. I have no idea what's happening there.
Okay.
So next week I'm going to hunt Ohio, but I'm basically going to explore we're going to talk about it at a different podcast, but I'm going to explore a lot of the new property that I'm getting into here.
Yeah.
So
better take the bow with you.
Yeah, I'm going to hunt.
Read the sign.
Yep.
Picks a tree. Shoots a deer.
It's the plan. But they're going to start cutting timber in probably 2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, you got time.
Yeah, I know. I got to pressure's on.
Next weekend looks like we're going to catch another little rain, something like Friday, I think. And then it's funny how that happens, man. I don't know if it's like it just seems that way, but it does seem like every year it's like the weekends always catch the front somehow. Like it's like we're catching the front.
Do they? I feel like we're always like trying to skip work during the week to go hunt.
Well, we do that anyways, but I do feel like it's like, man, how they keep falling on weekends.
Yeah.
Like at least it seems that way to me.
We said this, I don't know if it was on the podcast or just in passing. This is like the time of the year where like I have both hills like dug into the ground trying to slow time because I feel like, I'll blink and like the first week's gone. And then I'm like, oh, it's mid-October. I got to figure out, it's November.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's coming and it's rolling and
it's here.
I don't quite feel that way yet. I mean, me shooting that buck early.
You shot a buck already.
I know.
Yeah.
That threw me off
The
a little bit.
pressure's way off.
I know.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But I'm pretty quickly reset though. I mean, I'm ready to.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready to move.
Yeah.
I feel it gives me a peace though. Yeah, I mean, I'm not flaunting at all. But,
Absolutely.
But it's like.
Oh, you're not?
It's like, dude, I only have to get. It's a long season, and I only have to get within 20 yards of that buck one time.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
I just feel good about my chances.
And you've got bucks in Ohio you're going to be chasing this weekend.
Couple, yeah.
So, yeah, that'll make it
Corey's
easy.
going to be with me, actually. So we've got an east wind, which is weird. We don't.
So they say it'll be east.
I bet it will be. It's been a consistent east wind for.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
has
okay,
been for about a week.
I guess it was east last weekend.
So I've got a few setups for east winds, and one of them I feel pretty good about. Is I'm talking up that road there.
Yep.
But I don't have a whole lot of setups. So for Dale, Brian, and Dad, we're gonna have to. That thing left has been shown at the Scary Oak. So I may
a good buck.
I may put Dad up there on a north.
Oh, is that Scary Oak?
Northeast one. Yep.
Huh. Yeah, that's a good buck.
Got him yesterday morning and night.
It's close.
Both daylight.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
Yeah, so he went and bedded right up in there. But
Yeah, it's happening. So we're filming this early. It's the end of September, but Ohio, Pennsylvania opens this weekend. Illinois opens this weekend. Iowa opens this weekend. Wisconsin's already open. Missouri's already open. Kentucky's already open.
Minnesota's wide open.
Minnesota's
Crossbows
wide
in full
open.
force.
Yeah. Which our guest is in Minnesota. Not
there you go.
all the time, but sitting in Minnesota at the time being. So we got Jay Gregory on today, which will be it'll be fun. So I know
that was a whoop, not like a police.
Yeah. Jay likes looking. So, yeah.
A visor just spun around quickly.
Yeah.
That seems to be the officer problem.
The problem, officer.
So Jay's he's getting ready to hunt bear up in Minnesota. We were just
I
kind
think
of
he's just waiting for the daylight to turn on. Yeah.
Because acorns and stuff, and obviously Jay does a lot of hunting in Iowa as well, and so we're just gonna kind of go through, talk about a bunch of stuff.
Give me a quick refresher, and this will be fun to do because I know he can hear us, but he can't chime in. Where do we know Jay from?
The Wild Outdoors is what his show and what he's been doing. And so he mentioned pre-podcast, his son Wyatt is now involved as well.
Okay.
So Wyatt's younger than you.
Historically, though, like people know Jake. Like,
oh yeah.
When you say Jay Gregory, I'm like, oh, I know that.
I think Wild Outdoors and Jay will tell us. I think Wild Outdoors has been around for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, for a long. I mean, Jay is probably. And he might laugh at this. He's one of the guys who's been around on the outdoor industry.
Oh yeah,
TV side for a long time.
Well, that's where I'm trying to place it. Is it Drury? Is there like I've seen him on like other shows? Yeah, maybe he'll fill us.
He'll clarify. But yeah, I mean, you talk about some of the original guys with like Mark and Terry and Shockey and those guys, and that was the group. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because we talked pre-podcast that, and I think he gave some credit to Wyatt there, but. Jay found us via some of the TikTok clips that we do.
He said it's very interesting.
Yeah, well, and it's cool to see. Into his credit, not many guys I think who have been in the industry for a long time have evolved with the changing media platforms, and Jay has.
Sure.
Which is a cool thing to see because I think that's how you continue to be effective and relevant even in a lot of the discussion. So, yeah, obviously a lot of our TikTok clips are very. Out of context, I would say, is probably the best way to describe it. It's like, hey, let's take the most controversial piece, but that's what is fun about it.
They are what they are.
So yeah. Anyways, bring Jay in.
Let's do it. Let's get him.
Jay, we got you.
Hey guys, how we doing?
All right, man, doing good. Appreciate you coming on the podcast and from I guess, way up north, right? Sitting in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm up in Bemidji, Minnesota, trying to wait on a bear to decide he needs to come out in daylight instead of at 3:00 in the morning. But it's been haven't even set in a tree yet. I've just been waiting for. I think it may be another week yet before it happens, to be honest with you. But
wow.
Looking forward to finally getting in a tree and seeing if we can get a big bear in. But it's been a little slow. A lot of acorns this year. So,
are you in a camp or a family property or?
My wife is from Bemidji, Minnesota, so we have a place up here, and then of course my place in Iowa. So we're back and forth in the summer, and I was planning on trying to do a little deer hunting up here too, but our farm up here, I haven't had a buck picture since July, so it might be a little tough.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know Bemidji for its fishing more than probably its hunting in that location at least, but definitely a cool area of the country.
Yeah, it's beautiful up here. I mean, it's and I have some friends and people I've met up here, and they do have big deer. I mean, they kill some big deer up here. It's just up here you're kind of fighting wolves and everything else in the harsh winters. So
yeah.
It's definitely a whole new deal for me. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean that we were talking Skip and Chris Duncan just a little bit ago. And obviously the big hot topic about Minnesota has been this, recent introduction of the crossbow side of things.
Sorry, if I don't get this out, I'm going to burst.
Yeah, go ahead.
You could say Iowa's been a bit midgy.
That's good. Thanks.
But
yeah, good EHT reference for that.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. But yeah, so the crossbow thing has kind of been the big kind of question mark up there in Minnesota of like what's that going to look like for a state that has a lot of hunters? Obviously, the northern part of Minnesota, I think, between the wolf issue and the hard winters, has had some, definite pullbacks on the deer population. So it's kind of like, and I think up in that northern portion, Jay, they're allowing not baiting. Somebody clarified this for us, but you could feed up there now too.
Yeah, I don't know about that. To answer your crossbow thing, it's ironic that you brought that up because just last night I got in the arena of a TikTok discussion of crossbows, and
that's a good
wow,
place to
did
be.
that get ugly quick. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. But I was just responding to a gal that was calling a Raven crossbow a Raven bow, and I was like, I have no issues with crossbows. They have their place. My daughter started with a crossbow. It's a great bridge, to get them to introduce them to archery and, getting them close and the shot angles and all that. And I said, but it's not a Raven bow. It's a Raven crossbow.
Yeah.
Just like a compound bow is a compound bow, a traditional bow is a traditional bow. But
they love that, Jay. They love when you say that.
But I really touched on a nerve because holy smokes, did that thing blow up? And I had, I got some ugly responses. I got a lot of positive ones too, but it wasn't that I was going after crossbows or saying anything negative about them because, to each their own. It's like I said, a deer's dead, whether you shoot it with a gun, a muzzleloader, a crossbow, a bow. I mean, dead's dead. It's whatever weapon, and certainly as a hunting industry, and hunters, we don't want to be fighting amongst each other.
Sure.
So what someone chooses to hunt with is fine. Now, when you get into the discussion about what's it going to do when you put crossbows in with the archery up here in Minnesota, I don't know what the answer to that question is. It's certainly it would seem like it would make the success ratio will rise significantly, I would think. But there again, I don't know.
Boy, we didn't last long, huh? It's been 10 minutes.
Well, Minnesota, crossbows, they all went together pretty quickly there. No, first of all, I guess
that is kind of the hot topic.
I don't know what it is about the TikTok crowd, but yeah, I mean, you say anything slated towards like crossbows, and I mean, they're out the woodwork on you.
We don't read comments on TikTok for the most part, Jay. I haven't read them in a couple months, but it's for a good reason.
Sometimes they're entertaining, but I mean, it's just very defensive on it, and I don't think what you said was out of line. I mean, that's the truth. It's not a bow. It's not. Shoots a bolt, not an arrow.
Triggered.
Exactly. But there are some, but then you have people that rebuttal it, and they do have some good points. I mean, like I said, well, you're looking through a scope, you're pulling a trigger. And then some guy gets on there and go, well, you're looking through a peep and you've got a trigger on your release. It's like like you said, they get pretty defensive about that you're trying to attack their crossbow. And it's not that, because I understand there's reasons why people hunt with crossbows, and who am I to question that? I mean, to each their own.
Jay frickin' Gregory is who you are. The argument that they're potentially the same as dead and gone for me a long time ago. Like even the Outdoor Life article is the one that everybody was sending around yesterday, whatever.
On Minnesota.
Yeah. On Minnesota. You probably saw that. And it starts off with just basically some facts about how many deer have been harvested with crossbows, what percentage of it's 40% so far. And then it goes on to say basically how much crossbows are like guns, and how that lets people who aren't
who
don't practice with stuff able to come in. So it's and it's accurate, but in the same way it also they're kind of shooting that argument in the foot, because it's common sense. It's like, listen, a bow requires a lot of practice. It requires fine tuning, special fitting to yourself. Like it's fairly high barrier to entry, which some people will say.
That's probably why the three of us love archery hunting. I mean, if you think about archery and the skill and the up close personal encounter with an animal, whether Jay with a bear right now or a whitetail or whatever, that experience is something that's pretty magical. And transparently, there are plenty of crossbows that will let you shoot as far as a cheap muzzleloader anymore. And so it's like, to classify them the same, again, they have their place. I think for youth, obviously disabled, I think for aging populations, heck, even new hunters, I would be fully in favor of it. Like if they've never hunted before, it is a great entry point for any age to get in. But as you get into some of the transition from gun hunting to archery, like that is the message, is like, hey, we're going to use this to transition you from gun to archery.
It's a transitional weapon. Yeah, it's a good way to say it.
Yeah, I don't think that's right.
Mark my words, I will shoot a crossbow one day. I'm gonna have to. Like, I'm not gonna stop hunting because my shoulders are bad or whatever. I'll shoot a bow as long as I can, and then when that time comes, I can't, and I'll.
And that's the whole point. That's why they're there.
That's what they're there for.
Yeah, and that hits the nail on the head. I mean, it's going to allow some people to continue to enjoy staying out there that don't want to gun hunt, going from their, they may have started with a recurve, then went to a compound, and as they gotten older, maybe they can't draw the compound anymore,
exactly.
But it still allows them. And I see that comment a lot, and I totally respect that.
That's what they're made for, I think, for those types of people.
I've got guys, I've had like Dale and Brian have said to me before, like if they're and they're not old, but they're, 50s, Dale's 60. He's like, oh man, like, I'm having shoulder issues. It's like, if I have to, I might have to shoot a crossbow. And he's saying it to me like,
to get your permission.
Yeah. Like tenderly. He's like, oh, I really don't want to have to do it. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I was like, if you can't pull a bow, shoot a crossbow. Like that's what it's for.
I don't want you not to hunt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing on that side of it, but
we beat it into the ground pretty hard this morning, Jay. We got off. That's why we pushed ours a half an hour. We're talking to Chris Duncan and Skip Sly about a lot of things, from EHD to, but a big part of that conversation was the state regulation on crossbows. Minnesota came up. So we just beat it into the ground for about 3 hours this morning. So
it's fresh on the top of the mind.
It's fresh in there, yeah.
Well, I think that, so Jay, I know, I guess let's start on this. Jared and I kind of just during that little opening, we're back and forth. Your background or how you got into this thing, I'm familiar with the wild outdoors. That's kind of like how I understood who Jay was and watched Jay. But I guess what was it even before that? I mean, how did you, as Jay Gregory, even get into this industry, right? We asked that to everybody.
Well, this is our 32nd year, just to give you an idea. So
wow.
I might be shooting a crossbow here. So, but yeah, the way it started for me, it was more of a hobby, just taking a video camera out. At the time I had a friend and we were filming each other. Whenever we'd go somewhere to hunt and one of us would kill, the other one would jump in the tree with the camera, and we were just playing around. As it turns out, there was a sporting goods store in Kansas City, and I was showing the guy the VHS tape of a deer that we had shot on video, and he knew Mark Drury because at the time Mark was a sales rep for a company. I can't remember, but this is way, way, way back when. And he showed it to Mark. Well, the next thing I know, Mark calls me, and they had done, I think, a couple turkey videos at the time. We were thinking about getting into the whole deer video industry. And we got to talking, we hit it off, we met. As things evolved, that's kind of how I got started, was just in the video industry. And I was a golf professional at the time. I'd gotten out of school. I went through the PGA program. So I was working as a head professional at a club, and one of my members showed me an article out of St. Joe, Missouri that said that they were looking for a TV show host. Well, I'd already been doing this video thing, and so I got this wide idea that I would go get a meeting with the head of the TV station in St. Joe, and I did, and somehow I convinced him I knew what I was doing, and I had absolutely no idea. But I got the gig, and so we started the Wild Outdoors on an ABC affiliate in St. Joe, Missouri, and our ratings were really good there. And as that went on for about 3 or 4 months, then the Outdoor Channel came to be, and I sent a pilot show into them, and they took our show, and 32 years later, we're still doing it. So it's been a very, things have changed a lot in 32 years. Trust me, as with anything. But I think as much so with our industry, as you were talking about earlier, is social media has changed everything. TV was king, and I was lucky that I was in it for those really good years. Well, now things are totally different. You have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have YouTube, you have Twitter, you have all these things, and TikTok. And, we live in a culture right now of it's what have you done for me in the last 5 minutes? It used to be, we would film our hunts, and then I remember as a kid, I couldn't wait till July 1st to get there so I could run to the video stores and rent all the videos that were coming out, all my favorite guys, the Gene and Barry Wenzels of the world, and bow hunting October whitetails was the first video that I ever watched. It just made me go, wow, I would love to be able to do that and share my hunts with people. So things have just changed. And now, as you all know, if you want to watch a grizzly get killed with a longbow, just type it in on YouTube and it's there, and you can watch it right now. So with our show, we've kind of decided over about the last 4 or 5 years that we're doing everything pretty much live now. Everything we film, Wyatt goes in and edits it within a day or two, and we're getting it up on our YouTube channel or Facebook or TikTok, just to keep people involved and keep them with what's going on. And then we re-edit that footage whenever our TV show airs, July through the end of December. So it's a lot more work now. In some ways it is very rewarding because you get instant feedback from people, and it's a lot of fun. And I enjoy watching some of these others. I just noticed that Bill Winke's getting ready to do a deal on his channel on TikTok to update people on every week. And that's a guy I'll watch. I totally respect everything he's ever done. And he's like one of the, he's been one of my mentors that I've always looked up to over the years. So it's cool to be able to go to these social platforms and get other people's perspectives on what's going on in certain areas, and taking their feedback from years and years and years of experience. And, so it's for the guys growing up and all the kids that are just now starting to hunt, it is such a different world than it was when I first started. It's just, there's so much information there, and if you're willing to listen and learn from it, it jumps you to the head of the class real quick when it comes to figuring these big deer out.
Man, it's fun. I was pretty young for it. I know you lived through the midst of it. Jay was one of the guys that we're talking about here, but like the heyday of
that's what I was about
the
to
TD
say.
industry, like just to think back, like again, I was pretty young at the time.
Well, I think Jay, we probably actually crossed paths at like the Golden Moose Awards, and
yes.
That was an event.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. It was a legitimate award event.
Even the ATA event itself. It was it was celebrities amongst like industry
It was
professionals.
the greatest. Yeah. It was one of the greatest shows you could attend every year, was to be at those shows.
It was that was, I tell people about that, of what the Outdoor Channel used to be like, and the events and the money they spent on it. It was like the Academy Awards of the outdoor industry every year. And I was fortunate to win a few of those Golden Moose Awards, and to get to go up, and can't tell you how nervous you were to go up in front of all of your peers out there, and and give a small acceptance speech for this Moose Award that you got. It really set a level of the bar very high for everyone was trying every year to win a Golden Moose Award. That was a big deal. Of course, now they're done and gone, and it doesn't matter anymore. But yeah, those were very, very cool days.
Yeah, I mean that time frame, it's really weird because if you think about, to your point, Jay, the amount of content that's available to anyone, and even the quality of content. I mean, there's great content every day being released, but there's this kind of when we've talked about this in the past, there was this controlled aspect of the release in the heyday with TV and things like that. So you anticipated a show coming out on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. on Outdoor Channel or whatever it was. And I think the way that controlled release happened and the way that the anticipation and the engagement around that content was just off the charts. And there are some very successful people still today with the way that the modern content is released, but I don't think you'll ever touch what that used to be like, because it was, in a weird way, it was unmeasurable because it was, but you just knew that somebody else was tuning in at 7 o'clock on Tuesday because that show was about to come on, and that's what you watch. That's what people were tuned into.
Yeah, and there was no way to cheat and see what was coming on before the fact. I mean,
that's it.
That was it. That was the premiere of whatever you were going to see. That was the first time anyone was going to see it. It hadn't already been aired on TikTok or Facebook or YouTube or whatever. So yeah, it was just a totally different time. I tell Wyatt's 26 years old, so he kind of remembers it, but not. We talk about that stuff all the time, but how much things have really changed, and but I also where things have went now. I mean, it's there's a lot of information out there and a lot of cool things to watch, and we just have to change with the times. Just because I'm getting long in the tooth doesn't mean I can't stay back in the way things used to be, or I'll be out of the industry. So you kind of got to change with roll with the punches and move on.
Well, I mean, to that point, Jay, if you think about a lot of those people in the heyday side, they're not nearly as relevant anymore. No. A lot of those people just refuse to evolve with evolving media, or they, maybe they built their lifestyle around that TV money support, which is no longer like that anymore. And so there's been so many different changing of the guard per se in what it used to be and to what it is today.
Yeah, for sure. I remember, to me, when I really saw things starting to change I remember this small show that Wyatt was telling me about called the Hunting Public. And whenever they started getting big and they started doing what they were doing, they literally changed everything for everybody, I think. Or they were the first one to really start that and get things going in a up-to-date, everyday kind of thing. And that's kind of where we're at now.
I'll push back. I'll add to what you said there. I think even before that, Jay, I think Bill Winke, who you mentioned before, was probably like the godfather of like the online show, right? He was one of the first ones to do it.
Absolutely. I forgot it. Yeah. I was just thinking of what when Wyatt brought to me the Hunting Public, because I'd never heard of it. He's like, Dad, you got to watch this.
Well, and certainly
Bill Winke was so far ahead of his time.
Yeah.
That just incredible what he did. And honestly, we knew what he was doing back when he was doing it. And I was kind of like, well, that's kind of over.
Yeah.
I think. But he was way ahead of the curve. He knew what was coming,
Absolutely.
So apparently, yeah. And you're right, though. The Hunting Public has taken that obviously to a whole new level, But
well, the Hunting Public one, so absolutely, Bill, Grant Woods with Growing Deer, like those guys on that digital front really kind of
it was those two. It was Grant Woods and it was Bill Winke, yeah.
But even during those eras, because I had the conversation, I don't know if it was producing content or working with a client, but when we would talk about YouTube to sponsors, they didn't care. Because YouTube was a free platform, they weren't going to pay you money to be on YouTube. That literally is what they were telling you. Then all of a sudden, guys like the Hunting Public start to take off. And look at it today. I mean, today, people probably favor your YouTube numbers more than they favor whatever happens on TV at this point.
It's crazy. 10 years ago, it was TV, and then all this other stuff was just a sidebar.
Yep.
And literally now, TV is TV seems it's gotten better in the last 2 or 3 years, but boy, we went through a patch there about 5 years ago where, I mean, they were way more concerned with your social media than they were with the TV. Then things have kind of switched. You know, TV's kind of the sidebar to all the other stuff. So, and now you have to do everything. You know, it's kind of twice the work for half the money, but that's
for real.
Seems like how the world goes anymore.
For real. Yeah, and it needs done like right now. It's been interesting to like observe that. I guess even from my perspective. So Jeremy owns a media company in the hunting industry. I worked for Jeremy for like 7 years. And so just my perspective on it is interesting. It's like, man, there really was a division. Like it started probably with Bill and with Grant, and then I was getting ready to leave probably by the time the hunting public was really taking swing. But you could see not only in observing the content, that was where it was pretty obvious, but like behind the scenes, talking to these sponsors or manufacturers who really control the dollars in the industry because of how everything is structured. It was funny to see the division there too. Like there was really like they didn't know for years. I mean, dude, there's been like a 5 or 10 year stretch here now where we've gone from like I don't know what to do to like some have fully gone one way, some have fully dug their heels in the other, and so it's kind of an interesting place that we're at now to see like not only how content has changed, which I don't know for better or for worse, it is what it is. It's more accessible, but it's less like in the heyday, like you said. But it's also, I think, positive in the sense of like, the quality of products and information that's around them. Because, if you'd say one double-edged sword or one potential negative that came with everything coming through the outdoor channel was there was some shitty products that got promoted, right? They just kind of slapped themselves on, and that doesn't happen.
Because they had the budget.
Yeah, they had the budget, and it was part of a conglomerate or whatever. And that I don't think happens as much anymore. Like, there's a little bit more transparency, I think, on the intentions of manufacturers, the quality of their products and stuff. There's less like snake oil getting getting slung.
Yep, I agree. It's the companies. I have to be careful how I say this.
We don't want to put you in the hot seat, Jay.
Yeah, there's and manufacturers like people that maybe sponsored us that we work with, they were always looking for, and I think a lot of companies got burnt really bad. There was a stretch in there where these companies, there were people that were producing that were coming to these companies that maybe we had worked with for years that had come to them and make all these incredible promises.
Sure.
We're going to touch this many people. We're going to have this many eyeballs. So a lot of these companies just went full in on that. And they got burnt really bad because what people started to figure out is that, eyeballs are one thing, but eyeballs that matter, that actually might buy your product, are two totally different things. And you have to be able to discern between that. And, just because, one guy's got 5 million people that he showed that he supposedly says can see your product. And then you've got somebody else who's got 100,000 dedicated viewers that are hunters. Yeah. How many of those 100,000 are going to actually buy that product, and how many of those 5 million are even going to know what it is? Yeah. And that's kind of
that was one of the reasons
I'm sure they have to figure out.
Well, that was the biggest conundrum. Like if you walk around ATA show and you would talk to these, like
that's why we started Summer Media. Is I knew businesses who were getting pitched. I called it snake oil. They were getting pitched numbers and showing all these numbers.
Here's household numbers. Here's my run track numbers. And it's like, and then we had our own questions about that and stuff.
Or they would show me social media numbers. They're like, look, we've got 555 million impressions. And I'm like, okay. But people were buying into that because there were numbers that the industry had never seen. Couldn't even fathom what those were.
Dude, the feeling was so funny. Like people did not know. You remember walking around and you talk to different manufacturers and they'd be like, they would act like they did because all them guys are have a whatever
bean counters.
Yeah.
I call them bean counters.
Yeah, like a stature about them or whatever. But they didn't know. Didn't know. They're like, well, we got to reserve this much budget for this, but we want to try this, and they'd pick some random people that seemed like and try. And like, dude, nobody freaking knew what they were doing when it came to like where to put marketing dollars.
No,
a lot of them still don't.
I think that was that period, Jay, like right at the end of like where I think TV really had its stronghold and digital was kind of making that charge. It just everything was like basically a figure eight. it was so messed up in the industry that like people didn't want to cut TV because they weren't sure what was happening. But then there were all these
solid, had been.
Yeah, there are all these digital opportunities that were brand new, and it seemed like that's where the place was to be. And at that point, things like Facebook and YouTube, like if you had channels going and pages going, your growth was astronomical, right? That was before all these algorithm crashes and things that came down that restricted a lot of our stuff. So you had substantial growth happening, and these manufacturers are sitting here with the same budget that they've been spending, and they're like, well, we're going to have to cut 1 or 2 TV shows to take that budget and put it over here. They weren't making new budget, right? It was just, we're going to have to cut something. And that was the first time I really thought I heard in the industry about shows getting cut and people getting dropped. And now this person's over here, yet they told me this broadhead was the best last year. It really shook the industry up. I don't know, probably for the worse.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I'm one of many shows that went through. I mean, I could tell horror story after horror story of companies that promise you the world, sign a contract, multi-year contract, and then just on a whim, for no reason. I mean, they wouldn't give you any idea it was even coming. Just cut you. And then, I mean, contracts are worth the paper they're written on.
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Sue them?
Found out over the years I am much better off and the way I started my business was I knew every individual owner of every company I worked with. I had their cell numbers in my phone. I could call them and I could talk to the owner. As things progressed into this area you're talking about, it was no longer that. It was now these big corporations that were buying all these companies up, and I didn't know anybody. So I was a nobody, basically. Well, now, as come full circle in the last 3 or 4 years, I'm pretty much now, every company that I'm involved with, I have the owner of that company in my cell phone, and I can call and talk to them directly. I know that those people, give me enough respect that if something does have to change, they'll call me and say, hey, Jay, we're going to have to cut our budget. We have to do this, have to do that. But, it wasn't that long ago where you just get cut. I mean, out of nowhere. And they would generally love to wait till the season was about over before they'd let you know. That way that they ensured themselves that their product would be shown on the TV shows the whole next following year. So it was ugly for a while. It really was. And there's, I guess it's that way with every industry. It's not just the hunting industry, everything out there. People are always going to, there's snakes in every industry.
Sure.
And we're not immune to it, for sure.
The whole dynamic is interesting and fairly unique to I would say extreme sports for the most part, the sponsorship model.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like traditional advertising, where essentially it would be if, whatever, Rage Broadheads went to Outdoor Channel and said, hey, I want to advertise on your channel. That's easy, right? We'll do it on a CPM basis. Here's how many times it gets aired. Here's what it costs. When it comes to partnering with individuals, and doing specific sponsorships with shows and stuff, it's way more intimate in some ways, but it's also it's not nearly as straightforward. It's we can't say, we can, and everybody did for a long time, try to say, okay, well, here's how many impressions I get per quarter. Here's how many this and that. But
it was nearly impossible.
But dude, those numbers are so dynamic and they're interpreted in so many, in the most cases, wrong ways. That it really does have to, it seemed be more about the relationship with those people. I mean, that's what Jeremy and I do with a few of the sponsorships that we have. Is it's way, the barrier to entry is it has to be a product that we, one, already use, or two, genuinely believe in. And then secondarily, it's got to be about the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because our deliverables are pretty loose, transparently. It's we're going to include you.
We don't have any. Yeah, it's just, you want to be, are you in or are you out?
Yeah.
You want to be a part? We'll do.
Well, I think it also kind of revolved around at that time how products were being sold, because you got to remember, direct to consumer and things like that were not very popular.
Massive change.
6, 8, 10 years ago, and so everything was pretty much retail. And so besides Jay being shooting something for a commercial for a company, they really weren't using Jay's content to help market anything else they were doing. Now today, one of the biggest values my clients would ever even see is give me great content that we can use to market our products. That's what I want.
Check this out, dude. Maybe for the first time ever, it may have been the case last year. I don't think I bought a single thing for my hunting season from a retail store this year.
Oh, wow.
The last kind of hanging things would have been...
we had Tim and those guys set up bows. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but that's a pro shop.
Yeah.
That's different.
Okay.
The last kind of lingering things would have been my scent stuff. For whatever reason, I used to go to Dick's and I would get like my Scent Away body wash, whatever and stuff, and Amazon. Even like Knox, Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
crazy.
I don't go anymore.
It's a different world, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing we talked about ATA show, as this content kind of changed and the way that the media changed, the one thing that I think really did take a big negative impact was the way that products were introduced to the community. I mean, again, not to date ourselves, but even 10 years ago, you went to ATA show, there's literally bows and cages and rattling and like releasing these bows. Now, most of your new bow models are released like now. Like there is no anticipation. It's just like, all these people are shooting and filming stuff, and then next week, here's the new bow for this year. And it's all digital. Here it is. And cool, you can order it, in early 2024 from your dealer. That's it. There is nothing else around it.
Well, speaking of the ATA, obviously it's kind of like reverting back to what the Outdoor Channel used to be. The ATA used to be the biggest party in the industry. Everybody went, everybody hung out, everybody was a big family. I mean, it was a deal. Now, last year, I did go to the ATA last year. I think that was the first time I'd went in like 3 years. And after going, it's just kind of like,
pretty bleak.
I don't know how these companies can afford. It's so expensive to go, for one thing.
I know.
And most of the people that I talk to have already ordered all their stuff. They know what's coming in for the next year before they ever go to the ATA. So I don't know. I'm actually shocked that the ATA is hung in there as long as it has. And it's not that I want it to go away, because I think it's really cool to go and to see all the product. But with all the companies that keep pulling out every year and not going, it's, I don't know. It's just, I think it's like you said, buying your stuff on Amazon. I think that's finally taken its toll on the ATA.
They need to like accept their fate, and it's not that they're dead and gone, but like people want to go to that show, and there are people that would enjoy interacting with people. They need to open it up like as a consumer show,
to the consumer.
And
I agree,
and incentivize industry professionals in this modern age to come and
be at your booths with your
be a part of
manufacturers.
that. Yeah.
Stuff. Oh, it would kill it. I mean, they had a chance. COVID kind of threw that curveball into everything. They had a chance of a reset there to say, hey, listen, whatever. We're going to do an industry day on Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, it's wide open to the public. And they didn't pull the trigger. And this year they're moving it for the first time. Now it's going to be, or it hasn't been there in a while, but back to St. Louis, like downtown St. Louis or something.
Are they really?
And I just don't know what that's going to look like, because you walk around that room and the people and the manufacturers that you used to see, they're not there. I mean, when your biggest bow manufacturers are basically all pulling out and it's a bow show.
Have they all pulled out?
All but a couple.
Yeah.
PSE's still there. Prime's still there. Bear's still there. I know Hoyt, Matthews. Maybe Elite. I don't know if they're still there.
Well,
or not.
the entire premise has changed. Like at one time, it was an industry show where retailers could go and connect with manufacturers and like see new products and get their purchasing in for the following year. And like doesn't happen at all anymore. That's all that stuff is done remotely, and it's it's easy. But what's left is people still want to, I think, interact with the industry. Like they want to have like some exposure to that, and the industry folks do too, like that family
yeah, man, we yearn for that
element
stuff.
You were talking about. Is like everybody that has been to ATA at one point or another would say, yeah, I'd go back for that, if it could be what it was. I don't think we need the manufacturer retailer relationship for that to still take place.
As to your point earlier, I think they should have opened this thing up to the public a long time
years ago,
because I think that would have maybe kept the fire lit a little bit more. You stick a bunch of, those are the people that are really truly excited about archery and stuff, or just the general public. They want to come see all those products and see the personalities that they've been watching, through social media and TV and whatever for forever. Just meet them and say hi to them, and then meet the reps, and see all the products and the excitement going on around it. And I think they just missed an opportunity there, as you said. It's just the industry has just gotten so much smaller, and with all these people pulling out, it's like in fact, it was like a ghost town when I went last year.
Yeah.
I was in shock. I was like, wow, I cannot believe that it's come to this now.
We walked it in like 4 hours, and we're like, now what?
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to the bar.
It's really a shame, because it's like, like the Outdoor Channel is another example of, and I know it's still there on like MOTV and stuff, but it's like there used to be these places, like in the heyday of stuff, there was these places that we could all go, whether it was virtually or in reality with the ATA and show and stuff, and everybody could be together, like at least for just one time, or like you said, tuning into the same show at the same time. It's like there was a sense of like there's a body of sportsmen here that, like, without these things, as they're kind of dissolving. Like, I know those people are still out there. We talk to a lot of them.
We're
on
just
our podcast
fragmented
and stuff.
at this point. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Is it's spread so thin across the content space. Because you see it, like we talk with those guys, and Jay, I'm sure you're familiar, like Iowa Deer Classic. You walk in Iowa Deer Classic, that place is bumping.
We're gonna go this year.
It's cranking.
We're gonna go this year.
Yeah.
For our first time.
So I mean, it clearly, like there's still a pulse for this stuff. It exists.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what those futures of those kind of shows and stuff, play out here over the next, year or so. Even SHOT Show. SHOT Show is super expensive, and, I understand the firearm and tactical side of things, but from a hunting angle, I don't really know if you have to be at SHOT Show anymore.
I had this really dumb idea like 4 or 5 years ago, probably longer than that. I'm like, one thing I don't understand is why did the ATA and the SHOT Show not combine forces years and years ago, put it all in one building in Las Vegas where people love to go no matter what. I mean, people love to go to Las Vegas, and have it all under one roof. And okay, I understand that the majority of it there is guns and knives and all that stuff. But, you're kind of, the archery industry, I think, missed an opportunity there to open themselves up to new consumers who maybe weren't interested in bows and all, and broadheads and scents and clothes and all that might just happen to be walking through. But for some reason, they never could put that together. And the amount of money, I remember some of the companies telling me what it cost them to just go to the ATA or just go to the SHOT Show.
It's crazy.
And it was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of product they had to sell to just pay for that space was incredible. But for some reason, they would never do it. And I've heard stories that it was egos, and and the ATA didn't want to be involved with the SHOT, and SHOT didn't want to be. I don't know what the truth there lies. Probably somewhere in in the middle of that. But it sure would have made sense to me if they would have done that. I think it would have made sense to a lot of people, and I know companies would have been tickled to death. But.
So I don't know who is actually doing it, but this year there is an archery pavilion at SHOT Show. I want to say it's
sponsored by Raven.
No, it could be good. I want to say it's like the what is it, archery business or something. It's not ATA, right? Like ATA is still doing their thing, and now I think it's Grandview Media is who it is. So anyways, they're going to have an archery pavilion. It's probably going to be over at like Caesars when the main thing's over at Sand. So it's still going to be disjointed and stuff, but we'll see how it goes. But let's just say you are going to do that. You sure as hell aren't going to do ATA as well. There's no way that you're making a return on investment there. So I think that could be the kill blow to ATA, to be honest. Because I mean, downtown St. Louis or Vegas. I mean,
yeah,
pretty easy decision there.
I mean, in fairness, like, I mean, how much archery stuff can you really see? Like, I'm personally not like, if it came down to like, well, it's, the Ohio Big Buck Classic, and there's the Iowa or whatever they're called, Deer Fest. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And they had the archery companies there in a smaller capacity. Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. I guess I don't need like a dedicated archery show, like bow arrow release rangefinder. Like that's what I need. But still, you'd like to have I don't know. Maybe it does dissolve and it just turns into that.
It does seem like the consumer show thing post-COVID really picked back up. Like I almost felt like they were kind of teetering off prior to COVID, And then we all get locked away. We're not allowed to see each other. And then so when these shows happen, it's like, boom, we all rush. Like we do Great American Outdoor Show here. And dude, that thing is crazy for 11 days or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it is insane in that building.
Yeah.
And it's because people want to see that.
There's another example of what a consumer show.
Huge.
ATA, you would have thought, would have at least looked at that one and said, these guys have a show that lasts for 9 days or however long it is. I've done it a couple times.
Yeah.
It's like a month and a half up there. And it's like, but it's wall to wall. People coming through there, and those people that are there that have booze, they are moving product. I mean, they're selling them
for
stuff,
sure.
So,
yeah, man. It's wild.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Oh, dude, it's almost fall. You and I are both going to be in a tree stand with brand new Hoyt bows. We're going to be shooting the RX-7 carbon bow this year. I know Hoyt's also got the Venoms out, both equally smooth shooting, quiet bows.
Heck yeah, man. And we got a convert on our hands this year. We got a lifelong crossbow guy with a vertical bow in his hands for maybe the first time ever, a good friend of mine. And we've got them all decked out with the inline accessories from the QAD integrated Ultra Rest to the quiver. And also he's got the SL sidebar mount with a couple of stabilizers from Hoyt as well. So that's going to be a 6-shooting bow. Yeah,
and Hoyt's been cool enough that anyone listening to this can save 20% on any of the soft good apparels online using the code HUNTR, HUNTR, no E. And if you want to look at the latest lineup of Hoyt bows, check out your local Hoyt dealer.
Get serious? Get Hoyt.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. But, I think that the manufacturers especially are going to face more and more challenges here over the next few years with, you can only move so fast. Right. And I feel like right now, to your point earlier, Jay, like we're moving almost as fast or faster than we probably possibly can. Like they want stuff yesterday, they're putting this out tomorrow. And then the next day they have already this scheduled. And the next day this is scheduled. And it's like we're moving so fast that I don't know if the consumer's actually able to consume what we're putting out there because it's just, cranking all the time. I think at some point that's going to, our attention spans are going to yearn for more and more stuff. And there's only so much stuff you can put out that's going to be effective.
It's almost like it desensitizes you.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like, I get to have these discussions with Wyatt because he's your guys' age. He's
26.
He's the younger generation coming up. And I'm like, we have this discussion all the time. Killing big bucks used to be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a big deal at all anymore. I mean, it's who cares? So what? You killed a 190. Well, there's guys killing 3 190s a year.
Isn't that funny, man?
To kill a 200-inch deer doesn't matter anymore.
Ugh.
If you're a deer farmer and you got enough ground and enough money, you're going to kill 190s and 200s multiple every year. And it used to be a big deal on video. Now it's not. And especially with all these different platforms and whatnot, it's just it's a different world. So we as producers have to figure out, okay, what is it that the general public really wants to see? What will keep them interested? How can you keep them to where you're relevant, that they want to watch your content? It's obviously, everyone wants to see people kill big deer.
Right.
That's my goal, is to kill mature deer and big deer.
Yep.
I know in reality that, I don't have a 200-inch deer to hunt. I don't have a 190 to hunt that I know of right now. Now, I'm fortunate I live in the state of Iowa where one could walk by.
Yeah.
But my tracks are small. I'm hunting deer that are passing through. It's just a reality. But so I got to try and, bring things to the consumer or the person that's watching my content that, if nothing else, makes them feel like I could do that, or they can relate to what I'm doing, or what we've just done, or what we're talking about. I don't think that a lot of it anymore that's out there is relatable to the general public, of killing these giants and bunches of them every year. And it's the same story, in the pictures and the this and that. And, and it's just about money. If you got enough money and enough acres and you're a deer farmer, you're going to kill big deer, period. It's not that hard.
So Jay, when you look, and I completely agree. It's funny. I mean, that it really does come that, and it pains us to say that, but like, It doesn't. You kill big deer, who cares? Nobody cares anymore, and that's probably the saddest thing that I would have to say is like. And it's not. I won't say that it's like nobody cares,
you're right.
It doesn't make you special.
Well, let me add this onto it. I don't think it's just the content and the desensitization that's doing that. That is from a content consumption standpoint. It is that it's like, oh, yep, there's another 200. From an actually going out and doing it standpoint, which there are some of us that still like to go out and try to kill a big buck. It's everything we talked about this morning. It's the things that have made it easier. Not that they're not to go all the way down this inherently evil. Frankly, in terms of making it easier, I mean, cameras, the guys that still are doing it legitimately, nothing has changed the industry, in my opinion, more than trail cameras, and especially cell cameras. But if you want to tack onto that, most guys aren't, using it for these purposes. But your crossbows, your compound,
corn pals,
you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. All of that stuff makes killing big deer, it does. It just makes them easier. But dude, trail cameras more than anything. That is the thing that like lifted the veil on. Imagine right now.
That's what it did, though. You said it right there.
Yeah.
Lifted the veil. Before, if a 150 mature buck came in front of me, odds of me ever passing that deer, I would have been nuts. But if I know there's a 170 and a 180 also on the same farm, I might pass them now. Because I know there are bigger ones.
Listen, dude, as much as I love trail cameras, if you took them away right now, like if they didn't exist, I think everybody would like kind of come out of a haze and they'd be like, oh, wow, like we can enjoy hunting again. We can go out and like just...
Nick and I were just talking about that in Ohio because I haven't been out there. I don't have any cameras running. And he's like, well, just get out there and hunt, dude. I was like, I am. I was like, I don't know what it's a surprise factor, right?
Those are the kind of the crooks or whatever that, kind of keep us at bay and thinking we know what we know, and it also is what gets some of those giant deer killed. So, dude, if you remove that from the equation, I think the playing field would be leveled in a lot of ways.
I tell Wyatt all the time, when I first started in this industry, and when I first started bow hunting, well before I ever got in the industry, I didn't even know what a food plot was. My way of hunting then was I would go into a ditch or a block of timber or whatever, and I would scout it. I'd have to walk it, and I'd have to find the trails of the tracks and everything else. Pretty much now, the only way we scout, let's be honest, is we stick a cell camera up there all summer long, and then all fall, and we make mock scrapes, and you could pretty much take an inventory of what you're hunting by doing that. Back in the day, I mean, you'd look at all this stuff, and you'd find a big rub, and you'd imagine, I wonder what that is. Well, then you'd be sitting in the tree, and you'd see a deer. I mean, like you said, it was a complete surprise. Yeah. And you didn't know whether a 5-year-old 140-inch 8-point walked by. That might be the best deer you see all year. So are you going to shoot it? Well, if you've got pictures of 10 other bucks that are bigger than him, you're probably not going to shoot him.
Right.
It's just totally different. I told Wyatt, I said, your generation has it so easy comparatively. Hunting is... it's much more accessible now because of all these things. And I'm just as guilty, and I'm not throwing light on anybody that does that, because nobody loves cell cameras better than I do.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like a ritual. Every morning I get up, I've got 23 cell cameras from 3 different states, and it's like Christmas every morning. I want to see what are on my cameras.
Agree.
But so I mean, here I'm saying, they're not evil. They're just, they made everything easy and a lot easier.
Yeah, I think the big thing there too, Jay, is that, and I'm not saying even at Wyatt's generation, but the fact that you grew up and we grew up different than that. We didn't have those things. Like, we had to read sign, we had to scout, you had to risk and say, I'm going to pass this one, or I'm going to put my tag on this one, whatever it might be. Now having access to those cameras and stuff, it's awesome. It's great intel, but it's not going to change how we are mentally, like in terms of how much we love hunting or the grind or anything. I worry, though, in the younger generations, those who are growing up only knowing cell cams, my kids included, that eventually, like, it's just too easy for them. Like, what makes them stick with it long term when, they have a food plot, they've got a box blind, they got a cell camera, and they're just like, well, I know if I go up in there, there's a good chance I'm going to see this 8-point, this 7-point, or this 10-point.
Dude, it's not just Wyatt's generation either, though. We have to be careful.
I know.
We have to be careful. I mean, we talked to plenty of guys who are intentionally removing it from the, we've discussed it. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, I can see pretty clearly like how it kind of sucks the joy, the anticipation, the excitement out of like the not knowing.
I've never smoked crack before, but it's as close to being a crack addict as I
Oh,
can
dude,
imagine.
I'm like on a slow fentanyl drip of like my cell cameras feeding in.
Don't you act like I have.
Jay, we're both running like 30 a piece, right? So like we get it.
It's literally every morning. That is my first move. Where's my camera or where's my cell phone? And click on my reveal app. I mean, that's
dude, mine's in the middle of the night. Like 4 a.m. I'll wake up, I roll over, I start checking it. My wife's
the one eye buried in the pillow.
My wife's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Nothing." She's like, "Turn it off." I was like,
you get accused that you're talking to your girlfriend. No, I'm just looking at my cell pics.
Dude, Jared and I had that discussion the other day of like our whatever wives thinking we're cheating on them and stuff. I was like, I just want to kill big deer. I don't got time for that.
I got time for that, man.
Like, if I'm on my phone, I'm probably checking my cell cams. I'm not talking to any other woman. Trust me. Yeah, it's nuts, but it is. There are definitely times that I wish that it was back to that simpler phase of life without them.
It can be. It can be. I mean, we can intentionally.
We're gonna have it in Kansas.
You are gonna suffer in the sense of you'll be out on that information. But I almost and I pretty confidently believe this, that like you might shoot a smaller deer, but you'll be happier. You'll be happier with it. And if there was a bigger one out there, you won't know. Yeah. You won't have known anyways.
You'll shot it, and then I'll shoot the other one. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. We do have our Kansas trip will be like that because, frankly, we didn't get to go out and really scout the area we're going to be hunting this year, so we don't have any intel. We're just kind of out there. I guess
we're just going to go and
actually hunt.
Well, no, yeah, but the brave and the public thing is what's I'm embracing the challenge. It'll be fun. I'm sure we're gonna. Have some angry sportsman meter stuff at some point.
So, Jay, you're in Minnesota now. You've got Iowa. Are you hunting anywhere else this year?
Missouri, Iowa. Me personally, Missouri, Iowa, and then Minnesota. But Minnesota is going to be pretty short-lived. I'll get back down. As soon as I get done here, I'll be in Iowa and Missouri the rest of the season. And
have you guys hunted Missouri at all yet since it's open?
What's that now?
Have you hunted Missouri at all yet since it's been open?
No, I have not. And mainly because my farms there that I hunt were really they're pretty inaccessible until the crops come out.
Okay.
And on top of that, I just I'm either not smart enough or they're just never in an area where I can kill them in early season. It seems like all my places that I hunt, I kind of have to stay out of there until about the second week of October, and that's when things start to happen.
There you go.
But there again, I'll watch my cameras, and see what's going on there. But probably more than anything, and by the way, I got a call from my farmer yesterday, and they're already starting to combine beans, which blows my mind.
They said that in Illinois too. They're taking out corn and beans, like they're just going to town.
Wow.
That's just so insane that it's this early. But yeah, when the crops come out, then we'll get down there and get going. I've really gotten into shooting my recurve. I love the traditional stuff, so I'll probably I always try and kill a couple does early, and just if nothing else, test out my equipment, make sure I'm doing. Got the right weighted arrow with broadhead and everything's flying good. I'm getting good penetration. And so I'll always try and kill a couple does early. So as crops come out, that'll be my main focus, is just to do that. But then, as we get into October, things will start rolling. And I have some good deer on my farms that I know made it. And so it'll be fun again. Should be another good year.
I guess it was probably on TikTok or something the other day. Your recurve shot, you're a snap shooter, huh?
Yeah, and it's weird. I don't know why. I guess I've watched a lot of video of Fred Bear. So when I first started shooting, I don't know. I guess I just started shooting like that. I'm trying to get better about getting back and getting anchored before I let go. I have a really bad habit and it seems like, to be honest, I shoot better I don't hold it. Whenever I just put it back, look down the arrow and let it go, it seems to hit closer to where I'm looking than when I pull it back and hold it. I don't know. It's weird, but
that's kind of how mine's been.
New at it.
It's weird. Yeah, I'm fairly new. I started, when I was 12 and 13, I shot a lot of recurve before I got into compounds. I didn't really hunt with them. I just kind of shot them. And then last year I got a recurve and just really felt like, I wanted to take that step back, that extra challenge. And transparently, it's just been, it's that transition from compound to recurve is my mind wants anchor points and aiming, and the recurve just doesn't want that.
I agree. The other thing that I love about it, and I've talked about this a bunch in the last 5 years since I've taken up the recurve thing, it kind of goes back to the conversation we just had. It's like my whole deer hunting world has completely opened up a whole new, I'm not worried about, I'm not trying to kill a Boone and Crockett. I'm not trying to kill a 170. All I'm trying to do is get a mature deer, I don't care how big his horns are, under 15 yards.
Yep.
And that's hard to do.
Yep.
I mean, but that's where I feel like I need them in order for me to be. And I've been, I've killed a few bucks with my recurve, and they've been perfect situations. Most of them have been over decoys where, I get deer to react correctly to the decoy and come in and give me a point blank shot. And that's what I need to kill one with a recurve. But that's one thing I love about the traditional thing is that, and I still hunt with my compound. I mean, no doubt about that. But, the recurve and traditional stuff's really opened up a whole new, there's a lot more shooters for me out there, I'll put it that way, with a recurve. I'm not going to pass many deer that are mature with a recurve. It's not going to happen because, for one, I haven't killed that many. It's so exciting, and it's a great feeling of accomplishment when you do it with traditional equipment, especially as green as I am. I'm hunting my bear up here with traditional too. So
can you break down your setup there, Jay, for your recurve?
What's that now?
Can you break down your recurve setup for us?
Yeah, I'm shooting a 50-pound recurve, and it's a Java Man. I had it made for me last year. It's a custom bow. Love it. Just 50 pounds. I'm shooting a 30-inch 500s in the Easton Traditional.
Yep.
And then I've got it tipped with, I've got a 75 grain insert and then 125 grain broadhead. So I've got 200 grains
up front.
And I played a lot with weight arrows and with arrow weights and tip weights to get mine to shoot good. And that's the combination with my particular bow that shoots good. And it's heavy enough that I know I'll get penetration. I'm very fortunate that I've got a good friend, Brooks Johnson. I don't know if you guys know that name or not. He was one of the 2 original owners of Double Bull Blinds, him and Keith Bean.
Yep.
And Brooks he knows as much about traditional stuff as anyone I've ever met. So I've got him at my disposal where I can call him, and I've talked to him, and he's really tried to help me with getting a setup. And it's amazing. Every bow, every recurve I've got is different. Then none of them shoot the same. None of them shoot the same arrow with the same weight head on the front. You just have to find what shoots good for your particular setup and the way you release the arrow too. So.
Are you shooting just a bare shelf on that, or are you using a rest or anything?
Nope, bare shelf, and I shoot one over, 2 under on my.
That's what I shoot too.
I grip it. A lot of people shoot 3 under, and I've tried it, but it just feels awkward to me. So
very much
1 over and 2 under.
Yeah, honestly, when I started shooting my compound bow, I shot 1 over, 2 under, no release at the time. So I think that's why it feels somewhat normal.
So my dad's that way. You guys use those old finger tabs?
I've got finger tabs, and then I've also got the ones that go on the string. I'm kind of open on each.
I shoot the ones that go on the string, the little rubber deals on the string.
I'm sure most seasoned traditional guys are like, but they're easy, and my fingers don't feel like they're gonna fall apart.
I'm too big a wuss to shoot it without them because my fingers get raw too fast.
Yeah.
Here's a millennial question for you.
Okay.
Why is it just purely in the spirit of traditionalism that you don't use a standard release? Seems like it would make sense. With my Carter Wise choice, you would still be able to do it that way. Why don't guys shoot? Why don't guys shoot trad bows with releases?
Like releases and D loops?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I couldn't because it would be really weird for me to do that the way I shoot snap shooting. I don't know. I don't think I could.
Snap shooting?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've never seen anybody shoot a release on a traditional.
Well, it's probably frowned upon, I would imagine.
I don't know. So I know I've got a hard knock point on the top and then empty on the bottom. So basically, so it doesn't pinch down on that
Well, because your fingers, but if you had a D-loop on there, it's...
Yeah, a D-loop would be fine, probably. I don't know.
Good question.
I also shoot at an angle. I don't know if that would work.
The angle doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I canter my bow at about probably a 30-degree angle when I shoot it. So,
Yeah,
I think I do that more than anything just to make sure so the arrow doesn't come off the shell.
Well, that's what to the point of those rubber pieces on the string. Sometimes if I feel like they get if they scooch in too much, when I draw, it does throw that arrow off, and I have to kind of give them a little bit of spread there, a little room to work.
I assume the answer to that question is just as frowned upon.
Maybe. I don't know.
I assume if you're going to shoot traditional, that means you shoot fingers.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't know what would it. I'm sure people do it.
Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, I don't know, honestly.
You going to try to shoot a deer with your recurve this
Absolutely.
year?
I'm shooting the same Easton traditional that Jay's shooting. And then I've got a 75 grain brass insert, and I've got a 150. So I'm shooting 225 up front on mine. And I feel 15 and in, I feel really good. I've been flirting a little bit here with the 2025s, and I don't know.
Really?
I flirt with them out in the yard. And I flirt with it out there, then I get out in the woods and I look and I go,
I'm paper plate out there. And good for at least one over the target.
What kills me is when I go out there and it's anytime you practice, the first arrow really truly is the only one that matters.
Yeah.
And it's just scary how many times I've went out and I wouldn't even want to show anyone where that first arrow.
Well, man, that's my hardest part is because when I got mine, I was in it, but I was shooting 50, 60 arrows a night, and the problem was when I got into that, let's say 30-ish type, it was almost muscle memory. I was smoking them, but it was all muscle memory. Whereas to your point, if it was cold turkey, go pick up an arrow and shoot, it's not hitting like it does by arrow number 30.
Yeah. That's the scary part about it for sure. When deer season comes around, that's why I want them close. I feel like I got a pretty good chance if they're 15 and under, but past that, it's probably not going to happen.
Are you shooting? You mentioned the decoy side. Are you shooting out of ground blinds or tree stands for yours?
Tree stands.
You are.
Now, last year I did kill. I killed my buck on the 18th of October out of an elevated box blind or banks blind.
Yeah.
That came into the decoy. But the ones I killed the traditional have all been out of tree stands, and they've all been over the decoys. And I've got that. Not plugging anything here, but that DSD decoy is a bad dude, man. That thing looks so real. I could be sitting there in the stand and kind of not, just kind of almost like dozing off, and then look back at it and almost fall out of the tree thinking a buck just snuck in.
That's funny, man.
So crazy.
Those things are legit. They're expensive too, right? What do those things run?
No, they're really expensive. They're like $600.
Whoa.
But you buy one and that's it.
Yeah,
you'll never have to buy another one. They're literally, you'll never have to buy another one. It's a one-time buy because they're just made so well. And we put ours through. I haul that thing around with me. I probably hunted with it the majority of the time last year. I hunted with it,
really?
The decoy, because I enjoy putting the Tacticams on the front of the head and the back of it, and the footage we get.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And people love seeing the interaction between, and it makes it fun because if if you're out there and you see a younger buck come in the field or a buck that you're not going to shoot, you still get the interaction with the decoy. That's really cool. So.
What would you say? Because there's not a whole lot of guys that we see. Philip Vanderpool's another one that comes to mind. Guys that hunt, pretty consistently and have success over decoys. For me, I worry that and granted, we're hunting more northeast stuff. Not that necessarily, maybe we have higher pressure or something like that. But in Ohio, I'm afraid to take it out because it seems like there's a 50-50 chance that, maybe they're going to commit, maybe I get a shot, but there's just as high of a chance that they're going to see it and not like it. And I tend to err on the side of, I just rather them not have anything there. Maybe I'll just call at them or whatever.
Okay. So here's my truth. Up until the time I started using a DSD decoy, I bet 90% of the time I wanted to decoy hunt so bad, but every time I took that thing out, the first deer in the field would stand there and snort and run away. And I mean, it just got to the point where it was ridiculous. And then I tried the DSD, and I think it's just because it's so realistic looking that I would say now I'm probably more like 80% of the time the deer will come in and just feed around it, even does. And maybe 20% of the time I'll get one that'll get a little bit freaky on it. Every once in a while you will, but for the most part, I've had really good luck with it. Now I'll tell you, they are shipping us. We've been talking about trying to get them to make a doe decoy, and they did this year, and they're going to be sending it to us.
Nice.
I'm a little bit concerned with the doe decoy because it's an upright decoy, the head's up. I don't know if you've had much experience with this, but if you have a doe decoy in a field, every deer that walks in there is trying to figure out what she's looking at.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different with that. I don't know why it's different with the buck decoy, but with the doe, I find that my doe decoys, if their head's down in a feeding position, I'll be at like 99% of the deer won't spook on it. And they just think it's a doe feeding.
Yeah, she's
I was
relaxed.
hoping that DFD was going to make it with its head down, but they've come up with, they've done it more in a breeding position with the head up and the ears back. So I don't know. We'll see how it works. And they sponsor our show. I mean, they're a partner of ours, but cool. I told them, I said, I'm not going to pull any punches. If it spooks deer, I'm going to, people are going to see it.
It's kind of it's like the hen decoy thing. Like, that's all I used to hunt with was like a hen decoy. Now it's like, man, some of those hens come out, and the first thing they do is look at that decoy and they're like, yeah, that's not real, and then just for whatever, especially however you set it up, if you're trying to set it up feeding or whatever.
At a 45-degree angle.
Well, yeah, and just think of like, especially late October, November, I mean, those mature bucks they're just thinking a different way, right? Now, you put a 5, 6, 7-year-old doe out there, all she's doing is looking on something to bust, she doesn't want to deal with anything.
She is the worst. I mean, people think mature bucks are, and they are mature. Any mature deer is tough, but a mature doe that's had, especially one that's got fawns with her. Yeah. I mean, they're just, to get past them, you've really done something.
Yeah. Big old helmet heads, big old domes.
Yeah, she's blowing before she even hits the field. Yep, stomp and blow. Yeah, man, that's wild. That's unique. I mean, you're right. The in terms of use of decoys, you don't see it, and it is action packed.
Vanderpool's the other one. I know he uses a DSD.
I think the Heartland guys used to use them.
They do.
They?
Yep.
Yeah, Sean and those guys.
Yep.
So, and it probably just depends on the situation. I've used them. Well, we had those. What were those shitty ones we were using? Like, I don't know, Glendale's or.
They weren't that bad. It was like I don't know what they call it, bully buck or something like that.
We had those in Kansas.
They were better than the ones before that.
The problem in Kansas is they would blow over. Because it was so windy.
Yeah, we didn't. I wouldn't say we've got adequate amount of experience with them. They're kind of a pain in the butt to carry out. The ones that we had,
Yeah, it'd be like carrying them over the shoulder.
They were awkward. Yeah,
and the one big advantage too to the DSD, the one thing I always hated about other decoys was that you'd have to break them down.
Yep.
I would end up taking a drill and drilling holes and using zip ties, and I'd zip tie their legs where they couldn't come off, and their ears and everything else. But then when you're carrying them out there, it sounds like you're carrying a tin roof.
Absolutely.
And they're terrible. But the DSD is exactly the opposite. Theirs is made out of a different material. The decoy is all together. So, like I strap it on my bike on the front or the back of my bike, and then when I get in there, it's got a stand. So I just put it up, put the decoy on it. It can't fall over unless a buck hits it. We've had lots of them knocked over by bucks, but they're just made different, and it's why they're so expensive. I mean, they're made out of that same material that they make the turkey decoys out of.
Oh yeah,
I see the doe. They've got it for sale here. So at least at Shields, the buck is $6.99 and the doe is $5.99. I see what you say about her head up. Mm-hmm. Not like in an alert position, but
they do look good though.
Oh yeah, they're amazing.
That looks legit.
The buck decoy is the bomb. I mean, it really does work good. And then if you use some good quality like tarsal gland scent or preorbital scent with them, we've just had really good luck with them. It's so fun watching bucks come in there and get mad.
It sounds like, Jay, I mean, because here's the other thing, and knowing how a buck moves in is like, you can't just throw that thing in the middle of the field and in bow range and be like, it's good. I mean, you really have to set that thing up to the wind, to your stand location. There's a lot of factors there.
Yeah, you definitely positioning the decoy, the way it's facing as with where the wind's at and everything. Obviously, if you're sitting there, you're going to want to have the wind in your face. Well, the bucks will always circle, obviously try and get to the downwind side, but they will also always circle to the head of the decoy. So you kind of got to keep that in mind whenever, you've got one that's trying to circle. You want to make sure that when that happens, that he presents you with a quartering away or a broadside shot.
Gotcha.
And most of the time you want to shoot him. I got lucky last year and I had a lot of comments from the video, but I couldn't get my buck last year came in to the decoy and he was facing it and he never would come around. So he was quartered to me at 13 yards and I couldn't shoot. And I was sitting there waiting. Well, then he finally backed up and he knocked my decoy over. And when he knocked it over, he took about one lunge and then turned back towards it. When he did, then he was quartered away from me and I killed him. But he could have just as easily, once he knocked that decoy over, he could have took off too. So I got a little bit lucky there, but it's just, and that's a whole different subject, but shot placement and the way the deer is angling to me is just the most important thing. I can't stand it when I see, talking about all this new content and everything that's on YouTube and all these, and there's some great content out there, but I just cringe when I watch some of these guys shoot these animals that are quartering to them or straight on them. And it's just like, because I know there's a bunch of kids out there watching that stuff going, oh, I can do that, and it's like, oh man, just broadside or quartering away and your target gets infinitely larger, to make a good shot. So
Jay, do you reserve using the decoy primarily for field edge setups or like?
Yeah. I don't take it into the timber. I've tried it before, but what I've kind of found is that if it's not in an open spot where they can see it to begin with, if it shocks them a little bit, like in the timber, if they're walking and all of a sudden they get too close before they see it, they can kind of have a bad reaction. So, and most of my setups in the timber are pinch points and whatnot and trails and, and maybe, you're trying to call them to you there anyway with the tuber rattle horns. If they miss you by ways, you can try and get them to come to you. But out in the open fields, it's so much more fun because they don't have to be close and they see it, and then it's like, and you can always tell when one's going to play. I mean, the first thing he does when he walks out there and he looks at it is he starts licking his nose or he lays one of his ears back and then he starts doing that sideways walk, into it. It's just, there's nothing funner.
It would be a lot of fun. I mean, I've hunted with a decoy before and I've had some cool encounters, but I never shot one off one. I've had some younger bucks. What I told Jay when you stepped out for a minute earlier, I was saying, man, I'm always on the fence about it seems like, and mine wasn't a DSD, it was a cheaper whatever. It was like 50-50 whether they were going to engage or not like it and kind of spook.
I think the big thing, Jay, I don't know about your style. I do a lot of blind calling, especially in that late October, early November. And so when I've lost a lot of my mature bucks, it's because they've come in and they're looking and they don't see anything and they're like, and something's not right and they're gone. And those are the times I wish I had one to pull them through.
Sure.
So that's if there's a time and a place for it. For me, it would be open space or more visible space. And when I do a lot of blind calling.
Yep, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's worth a try, and you hope you don't have a bad experience and it doesn't cost you a deer. But I can't honestly say since I've started using the DSD decoy that I've really had many bad experiences at all. For instance, the deer I shot last year, there were 8 deer feeding in the field, 8 does that were feeding in the field within 30 yards of my decoy. And had they spooked, I'd have never saw the buck. But the fact that he walked into the field, he come out of the timber, and as soon as he hit the edge of the field, he saw 8 does feeding out there and my buck decoy.
It
was a done deal. But you had to get past the does first, and that's where I think the decoy makes such a big difference. If they can actually accept it as real, then you got a chance.
Are you doing any kind of scent control around that as well?
All I'm doing is I'm being really careful with my scent on the decoy when I'm putting it out. And I'm using forehead gland. I use I don't know if you've heard of it or not. It's called Branch Butter. It's by Black Widow. I use that up on the forehead, and then I'll put they have some tarsal gland caps that is just tarsal gland, and I'll stick a couple of those in the ground behind the decoy. And that's all I do.
Okay. So other than that, just avoiding.
To not let it smell like a human.
Yeah, that's what I was. I guess that was a big to your point about carrying them in, like especially in Kansas, it's 80 degrees. I'm sweating. I'm trying not to get that thing stinky, essentially, because they're obviously. If I'm trying to be as
do you use a scent away spray? Like do you have a sponsor or something that's like?
I do not. Yeah. I tell you, in talking about scent, the only thing I've ever used that I can honestly say works and has saved a lot of my hunts, and I know this is it's a hot topic and it can be a controversial one too, and they're not even a sponsor of mine, but I've used ozonics from the very beginning, and it just works. I've had so many instances. Well, that back to the same hunt, October 18th last year, when I got in there that night, the wind switched on me, and I was like, oh, I can't believe this. Well, I had 8 does out there that were downwind of me, and they didn't bust me. I mean, but I had the ozonics. I had that ozonics run full tilt inside that bank spline. I'm lucky I didn't have an arm growing out of my forehead.
That's how you end up like Bill Winke taking naps in the blind.
And you know how it is with a deer, especially you got a decoy out there, and they're trying to get downwind of it to smell it anyway. They're focusing all their effort then. Yeah. They're trying to smell something.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful when you put a decoy out that you don't leave any human scent, or you don't let them get downwind to you, because they're going to be on ultra, trying to bust you.
How about the nose jammer? Have either of you guys used that?
I've not.
I've heard like,
I saw something they sold like their millionth bottle the other day on like a press
it's one
release.
Of those things, like it seems gimmicky, and I kind of wrote it off out of the gate, but I've heard people say they like really,
Wasn't it like something around like the vanilla extract or something that like blocks scent?
Well, here's my only thing about the scent, that what's it called, the nose jammer?
Yeah.
Isn't the whole pretense of that is you spray it and the deer gets it in its nose, and then it takes away its ability to be able to smell you?
From my understanding, yes.
Hence the jamming.
If that were really truly the case, there wouldn't be a deer alive.
Right.
I mean, because everyone would have.
I assume it's temporary.
I have tried it before without having any luck, but that's just me. I'm not saying it's a bad product. Some people, if it works, it works great. But. My first red flag went up when I saw what they supposedly said it does, which is it takes the olfactory system of a deer and basically decimates it where they can't smell you. I'm like, I don't know. That sounds a little weird to me, but
I assume it's like temporary would be the claim.
For sure.
Yeah, the other thing I look at is there's other. Who is it?
Evercalm.
No,
Conquest.
Well, yeah, but Buck Fever also has like a spray, and it has vanilla extract in it. Well, if that's what's jamming things up, like why would they be hitting my licking branch then?
It's literally the licking branch stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But, So, but I mean, they're gumming and checking that. That's not jamming their olfactory.
I don't know. I don't understand. That Evercalm though, it's funny though, dude.
I remember using that religiously for a while.
Listen, I'm gonna say this scent stuff is one of the last like it's not uncharted, but it's like a mystery still.
Yeah,
it's like even myself, I catch myself like that spray. I don't believe it works at all, but I will spray my hat brim every once in a while. Just because in the back of my mind, I'm like.
I'm a sucker for the fresh earth spray.
Yeah, a little bit of fresh earth. Like, and I haven't yet, but like I don't know if I'll get through the season without buying some Evercalm and just you know.
Do you guys were you guys old enough to remember the scent that this guy was producing out of Kansas? And it was a big deal when I was a kid growing up. It was called Cover Up. Do you remember it?
I don't think so.
What it was it ended up finding out. You squirted it in your hand and rubbed it, and it smelled. It was totally vanilla, is what it was. And that was the first time that somebody ever really come out with a vanilla, and they claimed it like was a cover up. But I remember it smelled so good, and I was like,
that's funny.
I don't even care if they can smell it.
What was the stuff from West Virginia? Remember the
Smokies?
No, Smokies pre-orbitals. I've used that in the past, but no,
I am using it right now.
The cover up scent.
That's pure Red Fox urine.
Somebody just peed in a bottle. God, I can't remember. You know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Mountain something?
Mountain Magic.
Mountain Magic.
Yeah.
Same thing, Jay. And it's a big deal in like West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Southern Ohio. It's just Mountain Magic, and you spray it as a cover-up, and you're like, it's vanilla. It's vanilla extract. Yeah. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's just funny. That is one of those kind of weird spaces. Because, I mean, think about, not to pick up, but think of like a Fresh Earth bottle. Like, what's that cost them? 33 cents to make, and they're going to sell it for $10?
Yeah, it's water and dirt.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, have you seen, I don't know who makes it, this year, like the gimmicky thing they put out is like, it might be Scent Crusher or something. They have a bottle of, it's like you put water in it, and then you get whatever from your area.
Yeah, and it mixes it up, and then you spray it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I saw that. That looks interesting to me because the
ninja thing?
It's kind of like that.
Like
it turns whatever
blender?
foliage, whatever you put into it, into liquid, and then you spray it on yourself.
Yeah, I could see that with pine needles and stuff.
Sure.
Or a cedar.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, that's about as fresh as you're going to get.
I almost ordered one of those just to do it with pine needles and cedars and stuff especially up here.
Yeah.
I bet they're selling quite a few of them.
I mean, that would seem to make sense. I did see that because they did like acorns or something in one of them.
Yeah.
I don't know what the legality around that is, but
I'm sure.
I'm sure you can do it. Yeah, it is one of those areas that super saturated, but just, there are certain people that I know buy. I mean, growing up.
It's one of those deals. It's kind of like camo. It's like we don't know exactly how deer see, and we don't know exactly how deer smell. So, like, it's pretty, with good marketing, you buy in on like, oh, this helps with that.
And every year growing up, I went and bought Tink 69. It just was what, I'm like, this is what you have to buy for the rut, right? And I was the guy who was dumping it on his boots and walking through the grass.
Swishing it.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what it was. You saw it on a commercial, or I forget, Tink's was like, I think Jackie Bushman was Tink 69 or so, whatever.
A lot of people were.
But it was like, that was the kind of thing you saw, and you're like, well, yeah, I got my Tink 69. I'm ready for rut.
Mm-hmm. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy.
Man, Jared, we probably have been using Muddy products for at least 10 years now.
It's a long time, dude.
It's been a long time. And I can remember when it was simply just safety harnesses and camera arms of all things. And, that's evolved to where you and I both have a bunch of Muddy box blinds as well.
I would say a bunch. But, yeah, they've come a long way. And certainly the box blinds are huge. Shot that buck over your shoulder out of a Muddy box blind a couple years ago. The harness and all of the other safety accessories really are a major component of what Muddy offers for me. We've had some injuries in the past. I've had some tree stand accidents. This is all back before we were using, frankly, harnesses, the lineman's belt while we're hanging stuff, and the safe lines. I have those in every single one of, our fixed tree stands now. And so we really have made safety a priority. That's a big deal for us. And, Muddy has everything we need for that.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about Muddy is anyone listening to the HUNTR Podcast can save 20% using the code HUNTR20. That's HUNTR20. Anything that you can see on the Muddy Outdoors store online, use that code, save yourself 20% for this hunting season.
Go Muddy.
All it takes is one guy to have a really good experience with that scent too, and then he tells all his buddies, and they all tell their buddies, and the next thing you know, it's the gospel that it works too. So, yeah. But that's just marketing.
You know what? The first buck I ever killed with my Actually, you know what? I've never killed a buck with a gun.
Really?
I
thought you did kill one in Ohio.
I don't think so.
Really?
Anyways, not the point. First buck I ever killed was probably a 2-year-old, and I was, 16 years old maybe. Mm-hmm. I went in there with a bottle of, it was probably like Golden Estrus. It was like whoever makes that.
Yep.
Whoever makes that. And it would have been like Thanksgiving time. Yep. This was in Pennsylvania. I went out and poured some of that out and put it out. That thing came running over a hill from like a residential area. Like I was barely in my tree. I didn't have my release on yet. Thing came running into that scent. That was the first buck I ever killed. Ran right under my stand with that.
I bought a bottle of Tink 69 one time and hit a buck on the way home. I thought it was a good commercial. So, yeah, my dad didn't find it funny.
Yeah, probably not.
Oh, man.
That scent stuff is cool, though. You know what I do, Jay? I don't know if it works or not, but anybody can try this if they want. My parents have a big wood-burning stove out that they heat their house with, and I douse my stuff in it. Like I'll waft it in that smoke as much as I can. I smell like a straight up campfire. Not like on opening day usually, but by the time like mid to late October rolls around and
other people have their
people are burning leaves, campfires start going. I go heavy on that.
I've been always curious about that. I've known a lot of people that have done that smoke thing before. And I've always been curious about that because it kind of, I don't know if it would completely cover your human scent or not. Maybe it would, but they smell that type of stuff, quite often.
It's just a cover scent. It's strong.
People burn.
Oh yeah, I mean wood burners and
in
stuff.
the same way, you could probably go out
going.
and roll, get under the leaves and stuff, just something a strong natural smell to cover you up a little bit.
It's funny because that's like one of, especially in like you said, that late October, early November. That's like one of my youngest memories of like hunting is like walking back from a morning hunt and just smelling like a fireplace or a wood burner in the air.
Yeah,
and it's just one of those things that it's very nostalgic. Like when it hits your nose again, you're like, that's where it kind of takes me. So I'm sure those deer are really used to it.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing that I think people don't understand or they misinterpret is thermals. When it comes to wind, I think a lot of people will either have a good or a bad experience and they're like, oh, this thing worked or it didn't work. I think 9 times out of 10, the reality is that the thermals either saved you or screwed you. It's like they were lifting straight up and you might have thought they were downwind, but they were coming straight up.
100% agree with you there. I think that thermals have sold a lot of product and they've probably kept people from buying a lot of product.
Yeah.
Because thermals are everything.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's where a lot of those people hunting, those hub bottoms and stuff like that. I mean, I think they're great spots. They're tough to hunt, just in terms of how those thermals are pulling through there, regardless of wind direction and any kind of topography like that with the wind kind of bouncing off the different hillsides and stuff.
You talk to any bow hunter that's got ground and they're all going to have that one spot they wish they could hunt, but they just know they can't. Mm-hmm. It's maybe all these trails come together in this bottom down where these creeks all meet up and everything. And it's like, okay, I got to figure it, but there's no way to hunt it because the wind sets down there and does this, 1 minute it's in your face, 30 seconds later it's at your back, then it's from your right, then it's from your left. Those are impossible spots.
I think
like that's where all the buck signs usually at too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't. Those spots exist less and less for me. In my opinion, if they can be accessed, that's all that matters. Like if I can access it, at some point I'll hunt it. Because you gotta dive in there. That buck, I killed a 160-inch deer in North Dakota on September 6th this year, and that thing, it didn't, but the doe right in front of it smelled me. My case in point basically is the gig was up. Like it was like he was there. That was the only spot I was gonna kill him, and you got to take a risk at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
even if it's 1 or 2 days a year. I mean, you're not gonna like.
Well, that's when it comes down. I think for everybody, it's when are those 1 or 2 days a year to do it.
Well, it's not the same day every year. I mean, it's gotta be.
It's just making the choice to jump in and go after it.
Yeah.
So, which is not easy for a lot of people. I think those are the spots that, most people will stay too conservative, or by the time they decide, oh, I got to go hunt that, patterns have changed. It's not as effective as it would have been, whatever it might have been. So yeah, that's crazy. Jay, last topic, just because I know that it's a strong point for you and I think it's a good one to talk about, would be your experience with chronic wasting. Because I know sometimes, I think you and I went back and forth even on some differences of opinions. The thing that we try to do is we want to have really cool debates around CWD, especially for the fact that I personally don't think that most of the agencies are doing shit for talking to the general hunting public about it, which is what leads to a lot of debates and discussions amongst ourselves because those guys aren't even in the picture for most of it. And so, you've got farms, so you've got more investment in it than I do, right? But you've got farms in Missouri. I assume you've been hunting in Missouri prior to, the CWD even being found in that northeast part of the state.
Yeah, I grew up in Missouri, so and I live in a town called Lineville, Iowa.
Yep.
Which is literally on the line of Iowa and Missouri.
Right over there.
Just across the border. Here's my whole take. The whole CWD thing, I've been involved in many discussions and on podcasts and with Dr. James Kroll.
Yep.
Nugent and Kroll and I did one time, and I've listened to so many people talk about it, and I've talked to agents before. And here's my big beef with the whole CWD thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are facts that they cannot dispute. It started in the 60s.
Yep.
Okay. They don't know how it started, but it started in the 60s. Deer nowadays, because they are testing for them, have it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's been 60s. That's been it's been 50 some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
60s, no, it's been 40, it's been 60 years.
60
almost 70 years.
Yep.
Not one human has ever been affected by CWD.
Correct.
For people to think that we haven't all eaten deer that have this disease they call CWD would probably be a huge. We've all done it.
We've all done it.
I live in Iowa and hunt in northern Missouri where they've, these new cases have come up.
Mm-hmm.
People eat millions of pounds of venison every year, and they keep testing, they keep finding it, they can't get rid of it. Okay, so we know it doesn't affect humans. The other thing that they do not like when you ask them this question is, how many confirmed deaths are there of deer by CWD? Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't count the deer that got hit on the road that they tested, or the deer that you shot that you took that they tested.
Yep.
How many deer do they know 100% positively have died from CWD after 70 years and all the testing and all the hundreds of millions of dollars that they have spent on CWD all across the country? And they hate that question because the answer is zero.
Right.
They have no proof.
Right.
Okay. Now, the other thing is when you talk about, you pick a state like Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Wisconsin was the first place that came in and said, they had this wonderful idea that, okay, we've got these CWD hot zones, so we're going to go in there, we're going to put out bait piles, and we're going to decimate the herd. We're going to kill them all. Okay, so they did that. And talk to the people from Wisconsin today and find out where their deer herd's at, and it didn't affect anything. Okay, it was a complete waste of money, waste of time. It did nothing.
Yep.
Now you've got all these agencies across the country that are they got this system. And if you follow the system by the book, then you will get federal funding for CWD. Mm-hmm. And what that amounts to is testing, going into spots and putting out bait piles and killing deer, and going and talking to people. I've talked to farmers. I've had farmers that have come to me and said, Jay, what do you know about this CWD thing? I had this guy from the Missouri Department of Conservation came and talked to me and said that if we should let them put a corn pile. So I did it last year, and he said, now I don't have any deer. And I'm not, should I let them do it again next year? And I'm like, well, I think it's just ridiculous. And they explain that they're so, what's the word I would use? They go into a lot of these people that, let's say, are landowners that maybe aren't even hunters.
Right.
And they give them this, this spiel. Well, these deer have got this disease. Now, we're not sure if it can make the jump to humans. We're not sure if it can make the jump to your dogs or your cattle or wherever. But so what we'd like to do is go in there and we'd like to go ahead and get rid of the problem, and we'll kill the deer.
Yeah, these landowners are gullible to it.
Exactly. So you end up with these people that they install this fear factor. And what are people going to say? Oh God, I don't want Fifi to catch CWD. Yeah. Go kill my deer, And so that's what irritates me about it is I don't think they've been totally honest with the general public, and they go on, and it's the same story. It's the same BS every day from all these different states. And you can't show me one place in the United States where going in there and decimating the herd has made 1 ounce of difference where it's helped anybody. All it's done is it's hurt a farmer's ground. I always say this to people that are kind of pro CWD and how they're taking care of it. How would you like it if your agency came in and put 1,000 pounds of corn across the fence from your ground that you've been raising deer on, you grew up on, you've been managing, and wipe out all the deer come December, January, February, March? Yeah. How would you like that? Yeah. And do you think it's going to make any difference? So I don't know. I think they should take all those hundreds of millions of dollars that they've been spending on CWD. Let's actually put that money towards something that would really, truly make a difference. Let's do some research on what you can do to help the farmers, the ranchers, and the landowners get rid of EHD and kill the midge.
Mm-hmm.
That's the true killer of whitetails.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as far as I'm concerned. Until then, I think you quit testing. And I have some people say, so Jay, just stick your head in the sand and it'll go away. Well, it hasn't went away in 70 years the way you're trying to do it. And it's not going to go away in another 70 years. And if all these deer were dying, we're all landowners. We have video, we have cell cameras, we walk our farms, we shed hunt. Where are these mass die-offs of deer from this CWD? Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So, that's my position. And I'll debate any agency that wants to talk about it. The problem is they don't want to talk about it.
They don't want to talk about it.
Because when you ask them a few of the hard questions, they have no answers for it. They just basically are saying, you have to trust us. I went to college and I'm a biologist and I know more than you do. Well, you might know more than I do and you might know about biology, but I know that common sense plays into this a whole lot more, or should play into it a whole lot more than it has been.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me, because I know a lot of the biologists, I've been involved in that stuff. I haven't done any CWD stuff personally myself. The hardest part that I have is I'm kind of a standard operating procedures guy, right? And we've got CWD confirmed in, I don't know how many states now, 17, 18 states probably at this point. Not to mention the places that it hasn't been found. Everybody's doing it different, right? Every state does something different, just tweak wise, or how they're monitoring or how they're testing or how many. And it seems like if we actually knew what we were doing, right, we'd be doing the exact same thing and showing the results of whatever that thing is going to produce from every one of those states. And we're not
is anybody claiming though that they do know what they're like?
Oh, they all do. I mean,
Missouri's not claiming that they're having a positive impact even on it, are they?
Well, how would you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
The only way you find out if a deer's got CWD is if somebody brings it into a check station after it's dead.
Yeah.
So their answer to the question or their answer to the problem is, well, we'll just kill them all anyway, whether they have it or not.
Right.
Well, until your kid,
we'll wipe them out in this area because John Doe had a deer that had CWD on it. It's for lack of better word, it's asinine. It's just stupid.
We've been on this before because I think I said the same thing to you. I agree. Yeah, if they knew what worked, do that across the board. But in that case in point is they don't, right? So I guess
either
I'm in favor of
hey,
let's try some different stuff.
The question would be, has any of us ever seen the results of whatever they're doing? If they are doing a controlled shooting or something, what are the results before and after type of thing? Because Wisconsin, Jay brings up Wisconsin, they still have 40+% prevalency rates in several counties in Wisconsin, meaning 40% of the deer that they test have CWD.
Yep.
And they've done active management up there. Well, shit, it sure doesn't seem like anything
How
worked.
So? What do you mean active management?
So they've gone in and put bait pals. They've done, earn a buck tags. They've increased the harvest out of there to try to slow and or change the spread of the disease, right? Well, 40% of the deer they're still harvesting are positive for it.
How long they've been doing that for?
Years.
Interesting.
Yeah, like 10 years. But here's another question. Just in that vein right there, 40% of them, they have a 40% prevalence of CWD. Mm-hmm. Who cares?
Yeah.
Those deer are getting killed by hunter.
Mm-hmm.
No human has ever been affected by CWD deer. So by CWD, what difference does it make?
Right.
If it's 100%, so they got a disease, call it a disease, they have this thing in them that's called CWD. Okay, now, if you could prove to me that this CWD was going to, if we didn't do something, it was wiping the deer herd out, or it was going to make one of your loved ones sick and they were going to die. Sure. Or your dogs or your cattle or whatever. But they have no proof of any of that. And you think in 70 years, something of that would have come up. So, in a place like Wisconsin, 40% prevalence of CWD, and not one human has ever been affected by it. And they still have deer, and the deer they're still killing have CWD. So what really is CWD?
Mm-hmm. The point, Jeremy, that you always come back to is, because I ask, are there confirmed deaths? And you say that there are. Where was
indirectly stuff is what Jay and I were just talking about. So vehicle collisions and things like that.
Well, no, but there are cases of of confirmed CWD deaths, correct?
Well, that's how they originally found it in Colorado.
If there is, I don't know where they're at. I've never heard of a confirmed death of CWD.
What did you just say?
The ones originally in Colorado, the mule deer originally in Colorado from CWD. That's how they found it.
Okay.
So those deer were in a pen that.
Do you know is there anything online about this we can look up?
Oh yeah, it's Fort Collins, Colorado.
Can you pull that up, Nick?
67 or something like that.
Because I would tend to. It sounds like we're all pretty much on the same page. But I agree, Jay. I'm kind of like, it doesn't seem like a big deal. You know, it's like there are biologists and stuff, and you know, I think Bronson was one of them. But you know, a couple guys who are like, hey, this is a big deal. We need to take these preventative measures. I don't think they're necessarily in favor of, like, Missouri seems like an extreme example, but nobody really has an answer.
Well,
right?
to the point of that's where it comes back and forth on the.
Are you doing it on your phone?
On what each of the states are doing, and in terms of what's the consistency or communication. Like, that's the biggest thing probably is there's no communication.
Well, that's the thing. Just what have we done? We see clearly what's not great for a lot of people, which is killing all the deer. But so what is
and even to the standpoint of the hunter side is like, again,
I can't imagine, dude. I mean, Jay's, and I understand, like, yeah, I mean, drastic things call for drastic measures or whatever. But imagine they pull up next to your farm and dump several thousand pounds of question and start shooting all the deer for what? Testing. For testing.
Of which maybe one is positive, maybe none are positive.
Are you looking where it originated from?
Let's do confirmed CWD deaths.
Confirmed deaths?
Yep.
It's the 1960s.
Just in
Fort Collins.
Anywhere, I guess.
Well, Fort Collins is where the original ones were that died. They were in a pen, not in wild.
And so, like, those would be the ones.
Do they know that they died of CWD, or did they test them for CWD after they died?
They tested them for CWD after they died. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there is, at least to my knowledge, there is no test for live deer. I know that the deer farming community was working on. Yeah, there's no test.
They can't test live deer for CWD? What?
No.
How? Why?
I don't know if that's true or not. That may be true. It may not be true.
No, I don't think that there's any test for.
Can they do like a blood draw or something? How do they test when they're dead?
Brainstem. That's why you can't take any of the nervous stuff and everything.
Can't do a little.
You do your
pull out a little spinal fluid?
No.
No?
No. You can't. There's no testing. On a lot,
from what I know. Thing that sends up a red flag about this whole CWD deal.
That's one for me. The fact that they can't test live deer.
Well, how are you going to test a brainstem?
Is that any spinal fluid? Period.
I don't know.
How do they do an epidural? Does that actually go in your spine?
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't they just suck a little bit?
I don't know if it carries through there or not. I don't know.
Well, how about this, guys? So this would be another red flag for me is whenever they say, well, we're outlawing mineral, we're outlawing bait, we're doing all these things because, and this is coming from your agencies.
Yep.
Okay. And this makes me sometimes wonder, do these agencies or these people that say this, do they actually know anything about a white-tailed deer? And they're supposedly the ones that are taking care of the white-tailed deer populations. And they make statements like this, that they shouldn't be, that mineral sites, feed piles, and all that stuff help spread CWD. Okay, so as hunters, we all know that 365 days a year, deer touch each other. They use the same licking branches. They're always nosing to nose each other. They are around each other 24/7.
Sure.
Okay. They feed in the same alfalfa fields, the same deer field or bean fields and corn fields and everywhere else. Okay. And I can't remember what they said the gallon amount is of urine it takes in order to saturate and create enough prions for
it's a lot.
For it to spread, but it's like something like 16,000 gallons or some unbelievable stupid amount. Okay.
That's an Austin Powers type test right there.
Mineral licks and feed piles and all that help spread. That just doesn't make any sense. And there again, I'm not a biologist, but I have common sense. And we all know as deer hunters, you're never going to stop a deer from hitting a scrape, hitting a licking branch, feeding in the same fields, licking each other, fighting. They're a very social creature. So I don't know how saying that is going to spread CWD.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely not going to stop it. I mean, it's certainly one of the things that, like, has deer in a concentrated area sticking, along with, like you said, licking branches, licking each other. That stuff all still continues. So I guess I can see both sides. What do you find, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really finding anything. Like, it shows that it just says linked there for 50 years. And if you look up, at least what I see, like confirmed deaths from CWD, it just says there's little to no information.
Yeah, hence the reason they hate it when you ask them that question.
Confirmed CWD deaths. So here, Realtree has an article. I'm sure that's great. Let's see. Some to the season, blah, 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 chronic waste, and it's a safe bet. Comment thread, like CWD has never killed a deer. What if, where's the proof? Here's Lindsay Thomas.
KDMA.
Reported on story where a hunter watched a deer fall over dead from CWD.
How does he know it was from CWD?
I assume they tested it after the fact. A Mississippi hunter sat.
That doesn't mean he didn't die of EHD.
Sure.
I completely.
Mean,
that's the part that's so great.
Hey, Jay, just for transparent, I'm totally open to the fact that it might not, I don't feel one way or the other about it. I'm dead set against them, like, killing all the deer. I think that's the wrong way to go about it.
Well, that's me too. And then that's my whole beef with it, is that I don't think they're being truthful with the general public. They're just kind of doing what they want to do, telling us we're all stupid, and it makes no sense. And that's my whole beef with it. That's why I've been so vocal about it. And I'm one of few in the industry that will be vocal about it. It kills me that a lot of the other people that are in this industry won't talk about it. They don't want to, they're too politically correct to say anything about it because they don't want to upset their sponsors or whoever. I don't care.
Here's my thing. How can you say it's 100% fatal if you can only test them when they're dead?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Pretty good question.
Because, like, of course it is. You can only test dead deer for it. Yeah, they're all dead.
I'm assuming because they have had research herds that have died from.
That's why I guess that's what we're trying to find out.
It's kind of similar to, like, herpes. They say everyone in the world has herpes.
Really?
No, they don't say that.
But like you just don't outbreak.
I'm pretty sure they just said that to make you feel better.
No, seriously, you just don't outbreak from it. I'm pretty sure everyone has.
Is that like chickenpox?
I don't know.
It's like herpes is a virus that you can have, like you can have a cold sore, or you could have, and I mean, there's different levels of it. And to your point, that's what I wonder about CWD. They've created this name and this aura around it, but really, what is it? And is it going to affect, on a grand scale, is it going to affect a deer's lifespan and its quality of life?
So I think that's an
how
interesting.
How many years does a deer live anyway?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So that's an interesting piece of it, because if you read about it, right, what they say is essentially from the time that they contract CWD till death is about 18 months. Okay, so a year and a half.
Say again?
From the time they contract it to the time they die, 18 months.
How did they know that?
Yeah, I was going to say, where do they have anything to back that science with? They can't even confirm a deer's ever died of CWD.
So if it dies and they test it and they say, okay, this thing has CWD, how would they go back and say when?
Maybe it's because these deer have, like, they've purposely contracted the CWD in, like, a research facility to death at 18. I don't know about free range, right? And it's probably an estimate too. So if that's the case, so let's say Wisconsin, right? I mean, average buck in Wisconsin lives till 2.5, 3.5, probably not 3.5, 2.5 in Wisconsin.
I mean, average, probably maybe 2.5.
Okay. So odds are it's probably not going to contract it as a fawn. Most of them are getting it at 1.5 years old as a buck. Again, this is all per what the literature will tell you.
Sure. I guess technically the longer they're alive, the greater chance there is to exposure, right?
The greatest chance per literature is 1.5, as that buck is moving from herd to herd more because it's getting pushed out. Okay. So let's just say it gets it at 1.5. That means he'll live till 3.5 or till 3. But if he on average dies at 2.5, he never gets there. You never know.
Right.
I'm just saying what the literature tells you.
I have a question. What about a doe that supposedly has CWD and she has fawns? Do they have CWD?
Don't know.
They would have to, right?
I don't know how the disease works. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, if they're saying it's in the brain stem and blood, yeah, they don't know. That's the problem. Is they don't know. It is as similar to COVID as you can make an analogy at this point in our society. Right?
That, and you have created you guys are on the cutting edge. We've given deer have their own form of herpes.
Yes, they have their own deer herpes. Yeah.
Herpes.
Yeah, so I mean, you're at that same point of like, you know, they didn't know anything about that. They don't know nearly as much, but they're taking action, which they did on both, right? I mean, probably without understanding either of them, they took severe action on both of those cases. So I think it comes back to, and I don't know if it's communication and or what, but like we've done enough stuff here for at least the last 10 years on CWD. It's like, okay, what have you learned?
We should at least be able to Google a confirmed death.
Well, so in terms of like the scholar articles and stuff, you'll have to dig on that. But that's the biggest beef here is that a lot of this happens behind the closed doors of the research community.
Who is the authority? Like at a national level?
I've been looking. I've tried. So, and I won't throw his name out because I know him. There's a lawsuit in Tennessee right now, of which a biologist was fired from the state of Tennessee because he called them out for inflating their CWD numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he did, and they did, and it's in court now.
You know why they did that? They did it because they get federal funding.
Absolutely.
And so here's something else, going back to Wisconsin. If you look it up, Wisconsin had spent, I believe this is correct, up to the year 2015, they had spent $30 million on CWD research. Every year since 2015, they have spent between $3 and $3.6 million to this day, every year in the state of Wisconsin on CWD. Where's that money coming from?
Mm-hmm.
How many jobs is it keeping available with all of that federal funded money?
Well, and as crazy as it sounds is I'm not necessarily opposed to that, Jay, as long as, like, what do we know now? After $40 million,
yeah, that's the question. What has it accomplished?
Do we know? And that's not like a rhetorical question. Like, we should know something after the $40 million, right? What is it?
And it's probably more in the hundreds of millions of dollars that has been spent across the country.
Yeah, across the country.
Probably mind-blowing, you know, exactly how much money it is that has been thrown at this thing.
Yeah, I think that, and there's certain states, Wisconsin, Missouri, those two in particular, some of these states that have really had, you know, spent a ton of time and a ton of money on these things, they know something at least. I don't know if they don't want to say what it is or if, hey, we spent all this money and we're still where we started, maybe.
You might have just answered your own question. It's just typical government.
Yeah.
You know, common sense would tell you that they don't want to admit to you that they have spent $100 million and don't know any more than they did before they spent 10 cents.
See, but
that's why you don't hear about it.
Shouldn't that be? Isn't there like what's the like Freedom of Information Act? Like, shouldn't we be able to get access to like what it was spent on and what those results are?
I think you can get you can definitely see how much has been spent, but results are all, you know, unfortunately, results are at the grace of whoever is going to give you what those results were. I mean, they don't have any results, obviously, because if they had results, they'd be bragging about it, and everybody would be doing like you guys said. They would all have a common theme and be doing exactly the same thing to curb this problem, but they're not because they don't know, because they haven't come up with anything.
Oh, man. It almost seems like the evidence would seem that, like, you almost just have to take the stance of, like, there's not really sufficient evidence to say that we should do anything. And if there is, show us the evidence.
Yeah. Leave it alone. Let Mother Nature take care of it, and let's spend that money on something. Give it to the homeless or something where at least it's doing something.
No, don't do that. Good. That's not helping either.
Yeah, I don't know. Jay, where would you say that northern Missouri is now? You know, you're what, 10 years into this thing, probably?
I can't see any difference.
Say it's not south of Iowa.
I mean, I've eaten lots of deer from northern Missouri, so I mean, I'm still here and everybody else is. And I haven't seen any difference. Missouri is an incredible state. If they had the same regulations Iowa has as far as their deer season goes, they would blow Iowa out of the water just because of the habitat that Missouri has comparatively from a state standpoint between Iowa. But you've got this magical line, between Missouri and Iowa, and there's such a huge difference in age structure just because of the way things are done in the two states. But Missouri, I can't tell any difference. There's still good deer there. There's still lots of deer there.
Are they still testing really hard up there? Are they still doing shoots and stuff?
I don't know. I'm assuming they are. I hear they are. I have not. I don't think the county that I'm in is now one of them.
Yeah.
I'm in Mercer County.
Okay.
Now that there's probably some agency guy listening to this podcast that hates me by now from Mercer.
Join the club.
They'll be pouring corn over on the other side of the property I'm hunting in a week.
Yeah.
But,
well, it seems like they've moved south. It seems like Columbia, Jefferson City, like all of that area has now been their focal hot point recently.
Yeah. I tell you what would be very interesting is to talk to an actual landowner that has had this happen to him right across the fence or on an adjoining property.
Yeah.
And find out, listen to their horror story.
Well, I've been trying
we'd love to talk to anybody involved, somebody involved in the study. And
I've been trying to get somebody, I say perceives CWD expert. Some of these research guys are just too much, frankly. Like they'll just talk over our head and we'll never get anywhere. An agency person would be the one to talk to. They just
not allowed.
No.
Yeah. Sworn to silence.
Yeah, I just don't.
I about guarantee you there isn't going to be one of them that's going to be willing to come on your podcast and sit there and answer questions that you're going to ask them about it because they don't want to. They don't have an answer and they don't want to be.
I thought about asking Jason Sumner's to be on. That's Missouri's guy.
Who's he to the state?
Jason's the chief. But at one point in time, he was the head deer biologist.
He's the chief. What now?
Chief of the Wildlife Division.
Okay.
For Missouri Department of Conservation.
I've heard that name before, I think.
I know. I just don't know if...
Shoot him an email.
Yeah, I will. I think I already have.
If anybody's listening, shoot him a DM or an email or something. Tell him to come on our podcast.
Yeah, and it's not... I'm not here to grill as much as I am just trying to figure out some information here.
Chances are there is information out there that we're just not privy to.
I'd look at some stuff. I hate digging in the scholar articles and stuff. It's mind-numbing.
Well, that's classic, from the journals and whatever to get translated into
it doesn't happen.
To the hunters. It just doesn't happen. So it would surprise me if there's not studies and stuff that have been published that we could access that we just don't know how or aren't privy to, but But yeah, it'd be great to get some.
Seems really
conversation about
really crazy that and maybe there are. So Nick, we'll have to look. It seems really crazy that some of these state agencies, whether it's Missouri or Wisconsin, doesn't have some very understanding report, slideshow, video, whatever, summarizing. Hey, here's where we stand on CWD every freaking year, right? For $3 million or whatever. Seems like that would be pretty important to keep the education coming to the public.
We need Peter Ducey out here asking questions, grilling.
I don't know, man. Yeah, it is. It's one of those things because we talked about earlier the fact that I think retention and paying attention to our current hunters is so critical right now, and I feel like the agencies are doing a very piss poor job of it. To the point of, I'm not saying all the money, but a lot of money spent on this could be going to hunter retention, could be going to buying more lands for public access, could be doing a lot of things. I don't know.
Yeah.
It comes down to there's a limited resource that's going into these agencies and they need to be spending it wisely. And I don't know until we understand.
I don't know what the answer to this question is right now. I know that a few years ago, Missouri's Department of Conservation was the wealthiest conservation department in the country.
Still is.
And I can tell you why that is because they had they got a certain percentage of the sales tax
on anything.
Of every dollar went towards the conservation department.
Yep.
Now they may have rescinded that now.
I'm not sure. They're still making it, Jay.
Where that's at. What's that?
They're still making it.
Okay, so the money's there. I mean, they're an extremely well-to-do conservation department, and besides that, you talk about the federal funding for the CWD, and so there's money. I'm like you, okay. Just give us the answers. Let us know what's going on.
They're afraid of you making your own inferences, Jay. That has been the MO for every state department in wildlife for a long time, is if we give you the data, like we've asked about the Sunday hunting in Pennsylvania, just show us the data. Well, after 3 years, let us get a 3-year average, then we'll show. No, why? Just show me how many deer were killed last year. That's all I want to see. They will be afraid of what conclusions you draw from that data.
Okay, well, if they're afraid of the conclusions that you're going to draw, then they should be able to rebuttal whatever your conclusions are.
You would think so.
If your conclusions are totally wrong, then they should, that's their job.
You would think so. I know, man. It's crazy.
Per the whole, it seems like everybody I've ever talked to about Missouri is like, man, if they would just change these, this magical line between here and Iowa, it's like, why don't they do that? It's not a money thing, right? Like if they have the money per what we just said,
more money than any other agency.
Why don't they just decide to make the deer hunting way better?
Here's what they always say. They say it's tradition.
Yep.
And they say they would get a ton of pushback. And I've heard this too. Insurance companies have a lot to do with it because they think that more deer will be killed if they have it during the peak of the rut, which is, if you think about this, and I've made this point before. Okay, so if the insurance companies are worried about hitting deer, okay, and they have all this money going out for that every year, and you have the deer season is like a national holiday in the state of Missouri when it opens on the 10th of November or the 11th of November this year. Okay, so during the peak of the rut, you have a state vacation of all these people driving to their hunting places. What do you think? How many more deer do you think are going to get hit by vehicles?
A lot.
That time of year than if Kansas? You move the gun season to the first week of December like Iowa does.
Yep.
I mean, that
move right there would change the state. It would change the state tremendously with that one single move right there.
Oh, that's all they'd have to do. They can leave the rifles. That's no problem. You can look at Illinois. Illinois has rifles.
Yep.
They moved their gun season. Kansas is that way. Kansas is rifles, but their gun season is December. Illinois is different. But if Iowa's got the best of both worlds because they're shotgun and they move the rut out. Now there's some things that Iowa does that I'm not real crazy about either. But I mean, you're not going to please everybody with everything. But they're definitely doing the right thing to increase the age structure. And Missouri would be unbelievable if they would change that. Here's one bad thing that would happen is if they ever changed the gun season to the first week of December, land prices in the state of Missouri would double overnight. So, I mean, people would be in there buying it more so than it is now. And it's crazy how expensive it is now.
Over the counter, $2. Like, there's a lot of things that are checking the box for somebody who wants to come and buy land in Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. We'll dig some stuff. I've been trying to find a quote-unquote CWD expert here for a while now. These research guys aren't going to cut it.
There's a couple.
I can tell you one you might contact. Contact Dr. James Kroll.
Yeah, I know Dr. James Kroll. Dr. Kroll. Yep. Yeah.
Dr. Kroll is very, very versed on CWD, and he does not go. He just tells it the way it is, and the agencies don't like him for it. But
he worked for Wisconsin, right? Didn't Wisconsin hire him as a consultant or something?
I don't know what the answer to that is, but I know that he's got so much. He's forgot more than any of us will ever. I mean, he knows so much about CWD and that whole situation from the very beginning to now. He would be a great guest on your show. He is so knowledgeable about that stuff.
Be a good one. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, listen, Jay, we appreciate you coming on, dude, and great to get to talk to you and understand. Jared and I kind of always do these podcasts really because we're just trying to find guys who are like-minded with us and passionate about hunting and land management and just, everything around the deer hunting side. I mean, that's really why we started this thing out of the gate, was just to talk to other people about deer hunting, because we were doing it every day and figured we'd start recording it, basically.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the invite to come on. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up, and I will keep watching.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, man. It's an honor.
Well, we hope you and Wyatt have a good season. Keep us posted, and good luck on the bears up there.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Be safe. Wear that harness when you get in the tree.
All right, buddy. Thank you. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy and Stealth Cam trail cameras.
Cell cams, cell cams, cell cams. What an evolution the industry has seen, and we've experienced personally over the past 5, 10, whenever cameras were invented, right? It's like, man, it's totally changed the way that we inventory deer, pattern deer, and ultimately the decisions that we make when we're going out to hunt. They're a serious piece of the puzzle, and that information is invaluable for us. We trust the Muddy and Stealth cams, together to be able to collect any of that information.
Yeah, I mean, as an admitted trail cam addict, I've definitely been guilty of under-hunting places or relying too heavily on that information that's come in. That said, it's an invaluable tool to the overall management plan and strategy that I have for my own properties or even hunting public land. It doesn't matter. We have a finite amount of time in going out and hunting. So when you and I are after a particular class or quality of deer, usually a mature buck, we can't waste time hunting an area where that deer doesn't exist. And those cell cams provide that information that allow us to spend the time in the area with the highest chance to accomplish our goals.
Say it all the time, man. They can't kill them if they're not there.
That's it.
So right now, any of our listeners can use code HUNTR20 to get 20% off either Muddy or Stealth cameras. We're certainly going to be taking advantage of that, and we hope you guys do too.
Yep, check out Stealth Cam and Muddy. And awesome.
Mr. Gregory.
Jay Gregory, man. Wild Outdoors. Yeah, cool stuff to talk. I think the decoy stuff's really interesting, because we've had conversations about using that, and I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Those DSD decoys are...
It's also like...
Those are awesome.
I feel like and I'm not saying that he doesn't, I encounter a lot of young bucks prior to seeing a mature buck usually.
Yeah, I know.
And so I feel
you
like
run the risk of them knocking it over,
having
to walk
over,
out there again.
Yeah, setting it back
It's
up.
a lot of work for sure. Yeah.
But I mean, if you're like in the zone on that one buck that you're trying to kill, then yeah, probably.
It's a different style. I can see how once you get on it, like you cling to it. Just myself personally, I get this, the Bill Wanke in me. I prefer not to. I don't want him to know I'm there necessarily. Sure. I'm careful
versus
about. I will blind call, but I'm careful about it too. I don't want to have to.
You're not shirking off in the stand all the time.
I don't want to give them a reason to try to figure me out, to have to get downwind of something or to have to, because it's tense, and the chances for something to go wrong, I think, increased.
That's a big piece of, in many cases, why I don't like bait, is I'd rather
100%.
slip in
100%
natural, as clean as possible, nothing out of place, than something that's not natural. Right. That's not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's a big piece of it, but definitely it's got its place. I mean, I've lost or missed out on several buck opportunities by calling in a giant, and then him not seeing anything and being like, I don't think so.
Yep.
So that was cool. And yeah, CWD discussion. I wanted to bring that up. I know Jay's very passionate about that, and we may even have opposing views on some stuff. But there's a lot of questions that I think we all agree on that need some answers, or somebody can point us to the data. And I'm pretty tight knit with a lot of those agency guys, and I understand it's their job, it's their livelihood.
Yeah. There's
probably things that maybe they would agree with us on, but they couldn't necessarily say, and you may say, well, that sounds shitty. It's just,
Well, it is shitty, frankly.
I mean, that's life for most of us. You got a boss that you can't say what you really feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And that's where it comes down to.
Well, yeah, I don't blame those guys for it as much as it doesn't seem right that, that information is withheld from the general public.
I'll dig some too. I've got access to a lot of that stuff from my biologist days, and so I'll look for some things.
There's two guys then that and not like I don't know what our effort has been to reach out to them or not, but we need to talk to Tonkovich from Ohio about the baiting stuff, and we need to talk to probably Sumner's or I know Kroll's not in the agency, but I mean, yeah, we could talk to him too. But
yeah, we know where. I'm all for talking to Kroll. I know where his viewpoint will be is CWD fake. Basically.
Sure, fine. I just want to see evidence. I want to see evidence to decide for myself. There's just not a whole lot of it.
Yeah.
on either side.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I'd love to have some more. I asked my buddy Eric Mitchell, because he's in Minnesota now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was the one who gave me some of those research names, which I don't know, possible, but I think they'll just, you know, it'll be science over our head to where it'll be tough to digest for what we're looking for result wise. So I don't know. We'll pull some stuff out. That might be one that I don't think that's a normal pod, Nick. That's probably like a CWD special type thing.
Okay.
That we try to find, and maybe we even do a couple different ones and put them all together for like a longer CWD type pod. But I just because we're
crazy.
Well, we've talked about it enough on here. I don't want to beat the dead horse of CWD and spiraling down. So if people were interested, cool, we can make something and they could listen to it. You know, if not, they don't have to.
Fine.
Same hunter, same time type thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways.
We got to get somebody to be on it first.
Yeah, good point. Cool. Well, that'll do it for this week, 151 with Jay Gregory. If you're listening to this, it's at the heart of deer season. We
I
will
suggest
for sure
watching
have
that one.
Front.
It's you will have already watched this. It's too late, but I suggest watching that one with like a visor. Go get yourself a visor and a little Mickey L.
Dude, I used to have a real badass.
Just kick back on that one.
I used to have a real badass Corona visor I used to wear around.
Nice.
That was like circa 2002,
I know
2003.
exactly the visor you're talking
And
about.
I had bleached tips too.
Oh,
Did
boy,
you?
wow.
Yeah.
Who used to? That's a '90s look. Who used to rock that?
That's
Jay
like-
Gregory. Yeah, we just had him on.
Jay's like, wait a minute, that's me. So,
He was the guy. Yep.
yeah, funny.
Speaking of Coronas, I have a 6-pack in my trunk right now.
Whoa!
I'm gonna bust them out tonight.
Wow, nice.
It might be a little toasty in there.
Speaking of
I
Corona,
know.
you're not feeling that great right now, are you?
No, dude. I've had a headache for the past 2 days. That ibuprofen, whatever it was, helped.
It was expired, but
Yeah, it still worked. But yeah, I don't know what was wrong. Like the last 2 days, I've just had a horrible headache and just felt like real sluggish.
maybe you have CWD.
I might have CWD.
All right. Anyways, 151, Jay Gregory. Go out, hunt, enjoy it, be safe, enjoy. See you next week.
Later.
Take me